Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Smite Challenger Circuit Qualifiers Day 4, Set number 4 here. We went to our last one of the day here in North America. We got SOPS time versus My Fault B with a ton of recognizable names on these squads. We'll break those down momentarily. Before we get to that, I want to introduce, I got Mifflin sitting by here on the desk with me, so we get ready to go into our final set of the day. And like I said, I mean, all the talent that's just culminated between these two teams. I mean, these are some of the names that I started casting when I first started casting all the way back in like the early collegiate days.
All right, you have to flex on me, dude. I've only been doing it for like 2 years. I was casting Zatman and like Yarkor.
I mean, you got to start on Zatman and Yarkor. Meanwhile, I was casting Mando Warrior.
What, you gotta throw Mando Warrior under the bus, man.
Mostly because he goes by the name Mando Warrior, but he refused to play Warriors. He was always playing Guardians all the time out here. So maybe I'm just going to call him on that name specifically. Let's take a look, though, at the schedule and the bracket to see what you've missed so far this week. You're going to want to go back and watch all the action. We started off our week in North America, and now we're ending the week with North America. 2-0s across the board on every single set that we've had so far. Haven't had that 2-1 pop out just yet, but with the two teams that we have squaring off here in this final set, this might be the one that we get the 2-1.
I'm hoping, man. I want to see some competitive Smite. And these are two squads that I think can really bring the action to each other. I would argue that if we're talking just name recognition, just pedigree between these two teams, there should be a good deal of back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, we'll start off by talking about My Fault B, who's going to be over, I believe, in the second pick this time around for game number 1. My Fault B comes with Chronic, Coat Baby, Neu, Sybil, and Renjaru. Kind of an amalgamation of a lot of different SCC players throughout the entirety of the league, bringing, I think, like 3 or 4 different teams together to see if they can find success with this squad.
Is a team of veteran SCC talent, man. We don't have a lot of data on them playing together, obviously, because this is a newer actual team, but as far as each one of these individual players, they have been at times best in class in the SCC, very dominant. I'm expecting aggressive play from this squad just because that's how they've been playing each individually for their squads in the recent history. So keep your eyes on them. Specifically, I've got my eyes on Nehu out of mid. He's had some very good performances in the last couple of events, a very diverse god pool as well. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see what they can bring.
And not just Neu as far as diversity goes through. Coat Baby also has a very eclectic god pool. I mean, Thanatos and Wheelish are two gods that he loved running a lot. Ratatosker, if you want to throw that one in the mix. As far as his kind of more not-so-meta picks out there. But when it comes down to it, Cope is willing to bring out those meta selections. You throw the original core of Sleekness with Neu and Chronic together, so we have some data with those two specifically. But the rest of these guys have all been pulled from different teams. And you had Tiburones that got kind of pulled away from here.
Say the whole name.
Tiburones de Tijuana.
Oh,
that was the name of the team. But the rest of this squad, at least, you also had the Fishies that kind of had a couple of their players pulled out of here. So it is really multiple SCC teams trying to pull some of the best players that they had left in order to make one full team. But they're going up against SOPS time that also has a lot of name talent with them. I mentioned him earlier, Mando Warrior, then Jingu Bang, SOPS, Dashboard, and Big Yuji. But Big Yuji is being subbed in for Chinfu this time. And that's probably the only name that I don't immediately off the top of my head recognize. But SOPS and Mando Warrior, they've been around the scene for a very long time. Like I said, I've been casting Mando Warrior since I started doing collegiate years back. And he has not really changed up his playstyle much. I think he went from solo to hunter role like one time, and then he went right back to solo.
Yeah, you know, explain the beef, man. You threw him under the bus at the top of the death segment. What's going on with Mando Warrior?
If you're going to name yourself Mando Warrior, then stick to the Warriors. But he was refusing to play them. I mean, this is the man who was running Geb solo like every game he got the opportunity. That and Xing Chen. He would run those two all the time in solo.
What if Warrior is just like, you know, a qualifier, or it's kind of like operating under Mando? Like, I don't know what Mando means, but maybe that's just the type of Warrior that he is, you know?
If I'm going to take a guess and base it off of his profile on Twitter, I'm assuming it's Mandalorian Warrior.
That show's like brand new. This guy's been playing the game for like a decade.
But the concept of the Mandalorians have been around for a long time.
No, never seen it.
Yeah, I remember you were talking with Dolson earlier. You've not gone through Star Wars, so. But anyways, talk about the rest of the teams here. I mean, SOPS coming into the mid lane. He's had some time between mid. He's had some time between hunter role. This guy's been playing a long time. Jingu Bang in the jungle is probably one of the more interesting players to watch out here. He's been around this scene for such a long time. Has had a crazy variety of gods he's been able to pull out. I'm curious to see how he'll square up against Coat Baby here.
I'm expecting to be just standard jungle picks from both of these squads. The Surkets of the world. Maybe we see some Bastet out of the jungle. It seems like Camazotz has had a slight resurgence, at least in the North American SCC. But maybe we're lucky we get to see some Thor. I don't know. There's been some rumblings. That god's starting to look pretty good.
Yeah, the EU scene seemed to have liked Thor yesterday. We'll see if that gets picked up in here. Picks and bans for game number 1 between SOPS Time and My Fault B are underway. And I think bringing up Circuit, Fenrir, those are probably the most common ones as they're still sitting on their high horse at the moment, coming from the hot hands of the SPL qualifiers. We've really gotten to see just how strong those two assassins are, specifically in the support role. But we have also seen shades of the Circuit going back into the jungle. I know that Oath specifically really loves that pick in the jungle and can perform really well on it. Curious to see if we'll see Coat Baby or Jingu Bang pick that one up.
I don't know. With how bans are already beginning to roll out, I was expecting, Circuit to get banned out. Just when you see Bastet in the first slot, if a team's already putting some respect towards the Assassins, you're probably going to go ahead and roll through all the way. So Circuit banned out by SOPS. Makes perfect sense to me. But what does this leave available on the table? You've got a lot of meta Guardians out there, some Hunters that have been really highly prioritized, the Medusas, the Izanamis still available as well. Kind of play of the field to SOPS right now, and, well, they went support. So why was I thinking about Hunters, man? It's all about Fenrir.
Yeah, I mean, the one assassin of the core 3 right now that hasn't been banned away does get locked in. It was Bastet, Circuit, and Amaterasu, one of the rising warriors over in that solo lane. And then Kabrakan, Ardio, and Gilgamesh all banned away. And that does leave open the Fenrir and now a Medusa on the side for My Fault B. So they're just going to make sure that they get that strong Hunter presence over in that duo lane.
Yeah, Medusa's just so good in the 1v1. She's so strong. We've seen, 2 Gold Fury steals with Petrified just today from Medusa. Her ability to rotate in towards these team fights the second she gets that ultimate available to her is just so valuable to these team compositions. And now you've got the backline for My Fault B. You've got a good look at it. That's the mid laner and the ADC, Medusa and Zeus. Those are 2 picks that I don't want to dive into, right? Like, Zeus drops the shield on the ground. Chain Lightning's going to be isolating just about anyone in the back line. Fenrir is not going to win that DPS race. And even if someone is winning against just the Zeus, you're not beating Medusa as well.
There's probably also 2 backliners I wouldn't want to be diving against either, with Izanami and Agni locked in, 2 of the tops in their role respectively as well here on the side of SOPS Time. And then it's going to be a Bologna for the final pick up for My Fault B before we go into the bans. So we got to look at a little bit of the front line, a look at the entirety of the back line for the most part for Hello everybody and welcome back into the Smite Challenger Circuit. Hopefully you can hear us loud and clear now as we're still in the picks and bans here for game number 1. What you've missed so far after the Bologna gets locked in, it's a Khepri and an Ares ban now on the side of SOPS time. And Mifflin, we were kind of talking about, some of the backline priority that we got
Thank
potentially
God you remember.
some of the bans that would come through. You were talking a little bit about this Khepri specifically, and it kind of alludes to the potential that this Fenrir still could have gone into the jungle, and it is still a potent assassin. Seeing that Khepri ban might kind of force this Fenrir to go over to support.
I don't know. Have we banned enough Guardians with just Khepri and now Ganesh that you're really forced into taking a Fenrir in the jungle? I'm not certain that that's necessarily the case, but with SOPS time also kind of prioritizing some bans towards support, you could be right. I don't know. I just really like Fenrir in support so much that I'm never going to argue against it. Even if you have to stretch yourself a little bit, take a magical jungler, I think that the value that Fenrir brings to that lane, especially when matched up with an Izanami, is just so high, man. The ability to clear these waves, the damage output, the follow-up from Ragnarok, she's got it all with that lane.
Well, speaking of having it all in that lane, how about all of the clear and all of the sustain? Sylvanas now locked in for My Fault B to couple that one with a Medusa. It's been a little while since we've seen Sylvanas in the meta. We saw him mid with Leon's team during the SPL qualifiers a few weeks back, but most likely here going back to his more primary role as far as the support is concerned. But a little bit of an oof there out of you, Mifflin, with that Odin lock-in.
Odin kind of rocks the world of My Fault B right now. Zeus can't get out. Medusa can't get out. Sylvanas can't heal, also can't get out. Bellona can get out. It's going to cost her ult. Not exactly how you want to use that one. So Odin going to get a lot of value, but it is worth noting with the shell changes, with Phantom now being kind of added to the shell tree, you get the Phantom shell. You're not only benefiting from the ability to walk through structures, but you can also just get a shell with it. Incredibly strong. That has inadvertently kind of nerfed some of these more wall-heavy gods, specifically gods that have to utilize their ultimate to find that wall. Long cooldown shells. Got a pretty long cooldown too, but it's going to be a little bit closer. Maybe like Ymir doesn't get affected nearly as much, but Odin definitely does. But up against what you've already got from My Fault B, I think that the strength of it is worth it.
And it's very interesting that they would drop a Raven on the side of My Fault B after the Odin gets locked in. Again, another god who has to use an ultimate in order to get out of that cage. We'll see how it pans out for them here, though, in game number 1 between SOPS time and My Fault B. Coupling alongside that Odin is a Bacchus, a god that we talked to death about just about how potent he is in the current meta right now. But hey, Band of Warriors actually on a warrior, so there's the first little shout that I'll give to him
apologize
so far.
To him, or?
I will. Thank you for playing a warrior,
that's
and
not
I'm sorry for calling you out for not playing warriors.
All right, there it is.
But it's J-Mac, Mifflin, and Doug here in game number 1. But coupling that, I mean, kind of doubling down on that anti-heal with the Bacchus having that into his kit. But I kind of want to go into this Raven pick because we don't really ever see Raven. Very curious on the pick here.
Raven is super strong, I think. I'm always surprised when he falls out of the meta because of how good his kit is just on its own. Range CC, a root, you've got a slow that's on a very low cooldown. Essentially a Beads Aegis built into your kit, and then another Beads Leap built into your kit, CC immunity in the ultimate, as well as the overhead kick means that he is one of the most slippery junglers in the game. Generally, though, when I see Raven most recently, he goes towards that Mannequin Scepter. Not necessarily because he utilizes the passive early on very well. Sure, any god that's got a slow out of the jungle is going to get a little bit of value from it because you're able to find those auto attacks a little bit more easily. But Mannequin's Hidden Blade on Raven, it's kind of wild. You're able to finish up some of these picks very, very easily. Instead, it's going to be the Bumba's Dagger Tree, likely going to be upgraded into the Bumba's Spear, and, well, that's still a ton of damage for him.
The name of the game so far in this early Season 9 meta has been dual lane aggression. So far, SOPS time has the advantage in that lane, though that just comes naturally with having that Izanami coupled in there. Doesn't really matter what you pair with Izanami, though. Quick beads up against Chinfu has to use that to get away from the pull out of Sybil. And also to note, something that we forgot to mention is that Renjaru is actually being subbed out this set, and it'll be Diesel in this place. So we're going to have both of the subs for these two teams in the duo lane.
Hey, you know what? That's not a dual lane that we haven't seen in the past, right? Diesel and Sybil have been playing together for a very long time. So the conversation around playing with a sub is that you've lost out on synergy. I'm just not certain that's the case. These guys have been playing together forever, so maybe you're feeling just fine on the side of My Fault B. But as of now, it seems that they're struggling, My Fault B that is, to leverage the pressure of this Sylvanas Medusa lane. This Izanami is just getting the better end of all the clear.
Do you see a little bit of skirmishing in the mid lane? Clear will go over the way of the Zeus and the Raven. Just much more potent clear coming from that Zeus. You drop the shield down in the middle of a wave, and Sybil just stole the Harpy away. Good on Sylvanas for stealing that one out there, but kind of going there. I mean, Zeus is just going to have the best clear out of these mages in the early game by nature of that shield. Agni doesn't really want to step up to the wave to try and clear that, especially when Zeus is standing right next to him.
Yeah, those Zeus buffs to the shield toss-out should have been an early indicator that aggro was going over to Design Man, because 20% movement speed and attack speed at rank 1.
Kind of gross.
It's kind of disgusting. Scales up to 40% once you've got that ability maxed out. That's both ways, by the way. He becomes super hard to lock down, and he also deals a ton of damage to neutral objectives. A little-known fact about Zeus, or sure, probably widely known, but not talked about enough, is the fact that when he applies charges or something, his auto attacks are empowered as well. So once you have 3 charges on Fire Giant, Gold Fury, Pyromancer, all of a sudden your Zeus has great confirmation because he's got the charges applied. Detonate does a ton of damage. But also he's just another magical hunter, essentially, especially with some of the stims in his kit.
I've seen some people actually running Zeus in the dual lane kind of after
not.
that change just came through. Wasn't great as far as like the higher competitive level of scenes go, but in the casuals, I've been seeing it see some level of success. You're throwing the nimble rod of Tahuti.
I dare him to run that in my casuals.
There you go. If you see Mifflin in your game, be sure to run that Zeus up against him. Don't run it with him. Make sure to run it up against him. Mando Warrior in a little bit of danger. Cope level 5 on this Raven. Mando just running back to the depths of his tier 2 tower to get away because we did have a blue buff invade start up there, but it does look like Mando secured his own blue.
Very smart play from Mando Warrior to hold on to his leap there. Had he panicked at all about the damage coming from Raven and used that leap to escape, he instant dies. That's the only thing. That threat of cooldown was the only thing that kept Cope from using his own ultimate to chase out that kill. So good wherewithal from Mando Warrior to hold on to that cooldown and just kind of distract Cope for a little while.
It will be level 5 for Cope holding on to that. Jinkabang hasn't hit 5 yet, and that's where the real game-changing ult starts coming through. Mando Warrior being a nuisance, and Chronic maybe expecting, because he just dropped the ult walking through the jungle, that somebody else was there and just decides, you know what? I don't want to be in this place. I'm just going to leave.
Yeah, I mean, that's as good a read as I got as well. I gotta think that Chronic, had he just stayed inside the cage, gets to hold on to his cooldown and likely wins the fight up against Mando Warrior as well, considering he's gone for the Death's Toll. Bellona, that is, so out-sustains in the fight. Scourge as well. Gives you healing on your auto attacks, or you could even go into the shield stance and block some of these autos. Odin really does not get the better end of that lane. Any single time that they actually box each other, well, you're probably feeling just fine.
Yeah, especially with the sustain in the Bellona's kit like you were highlighting there. But invades across the board here from My Fault B. They take away both the Heartbeat camps and immunity with that overhead kick by Kobe, will use the ult to get away from Ragnarok. Jinkabang doesn't find anybody with that first ultimate. So our first little scuffle here in the jungle will come out as a net wash, to say the very least. Both junglers lose out on their ults.
Yeah, Jinkabang was chasing out Cope there, trying to make use of the fact that Cope had gone for an early blink rather than beads, which is generally the cardinal sin when you're playing up against a Fenrir, but doesn't really matter to him too much. Overhead kick, going to be able to immune out some of that if you're quick on the trigger finger as well as the ultimate, but just distance is all Cope needed in that exchange. Chronic as well, similarly, does not have beads available, so could have been a good target, but Jinkabang splits the uprights, gets nobody, and has to walk away, wait for that cooldown to come back up. Luckily for him, Jotun's Wrath finished, so some CDR should get that up a little bit more quickly.
And they were very worried about this physical damage that's coming out of the opposite side against him. Doesn't want to be dealing with this Fenrir, doesn't want to deal with this Odin when the late game starts coming through. Already has that Celestial Legion helm picked up. Gives him a lot of power, gives him some decent early defense as well. On the opposite side, though, SOPS is already starting to get that flat pin online and get this Agni's damage rolling.
And the second he gets that next item, I'm expecting a Spear of Desolation. I was expecting a Spear of Deso in the first slot, maybe concerned with the Sylvanas, as you said, but Sylvanas not really rotating at this point of the game. I think by the time SOPS would have finished Divine Ruin, had he gone Deso first, you would have got the similar levels of value. Now you're taking a slight hit to your ability to poke out Nehu on the other side. He's not going to worry too much about the damage output of this Agni, and you don't get that additional CDR either. But just fine. You're still doing a ton of damage at this point of the game, and every bit of poke up against Nehu still will be valuable.
Another fight over here on the right side of the map. Ultimate does pick up Chronic, who's now stuck under the tower. Good stun. Eagles Rally will get him out of the depths of the tier 1, but he's stuck inside the cage now, and it will not be. Cope Baby turns it around. Massive damage coming out of My Fault B will put them on the board first with a double kill.
Dashboard makes the rotation in just so he can get some of the farm from that wave. If both jungle and solo are dead, someone might as well benefit from the experience over here. And you're right, man. That rotation from Cope blocks a couple of auto attacks, makes sure that Chronic was able to survive there. I thought for certain Chronic was dead. Maybe had Mando Warrior dropped the ultimate early and forced Chronic to take the spear from the ult as you leave it, could have been enough damage to finish off that kill, but I can't argue with the decision-making of Mando saying, all right, he's going to leap out just to escape the tower. I'll get the cage on the tail end, and he's going to be stuck with me. But it just does not pan out this time around. Jinku Bang, not enough damage either on this Fenrir to finish off that kill. Can we get a look at the level order for this Fenrir out of the jungle? I am curious whether or not he's maxing out Unchained or Brutalize. It is the Brutalize. That's risky, man. You're not getting too many opportunities to full channel it, I don't think. Sybil should be able to stop it pretty easily. Cope can immune half of it at least. Chronic can ult to escape it. Maybe Unchained could have gone the distance there, but I suppose not. He's just going to go ahead and hedge his bets on the all-in engagements.
It's always interesting seeing on gods that flex into these different roles like Fenrir and Serket, kind of where you see that level priority go through. Ultimate out of Sybil, though, in the mid lane, and a missed pull up against Dashboard. In the back line goes Jinku Bang. We'll pick up Cope Baby this time and pull him under another Tier 1 tower, but Cope's got his own ultimate. He'll get away, Intoxicate, not enough damage, and the Lightning Storm will not find any of the killing blows just yet. That last little bomb there out of SOPS does clip Cope, but it's not enough to kill. And somehow, yet another target gets pulled up by this Ragnarok and manages to get away.
Yeah, pulled by Ragnarok into a tower before the 10-minute mark.
What?
By the way, SOPS died. Nehu slams him with a chain lightning and finishes him off very easily. SOPS just not showing enough respect in that lane. Loses his Aegis and his life in the exact same breath. And My Fault B off to a roaring start in Game 1. That is a massive lead just 8.5 minutes in.
I mean, we just started getting our kills on the board literally like a minute or so ago. Minute and a half, we saw fighting dual lane, and then once Ragnarok was back up, Jinku Bang went to mid lane. So this 3,000 gold lead that is amassed has really mostly just been off of those early 3 kills. We do see a slight level lead for Diesel over in this dual lane, about a level up. But Sybil, 2 levels up over Dashboard. And maybe a little bit of a risky call for his first relic. I mean, he does go for the beads, hasn't had to use it just yet, but kind of how you were talking over in picks and bans, you know, Shell seems to be such a potent starter item, especially when you're going up against these gods that have these cages and walls.
Yeah, you got to talk about pacing in the game, though, when you're evaluating whether or not you want to go for the Phantom or the beads first. And who is Sybil going to be locking eyes with more often throughout the early portions of the game? Probably going to be Jinku Bang, right? This Fenrir who is maneuvering the entirety of the map, whereas Mando Warrior likely going to be relegated to sticking around the short lane, at least for a little while, especially considering he's playing at a deficit right now. So I agree with Sybil.
It's another boxing match between the junglers. Jinku Bang does pick up Cope Baby, but he's going to have the better cooldowns on the tail end of the fight. The 1v1 goes the way of Cope Baby. Got that Prana Onslaught back up. Nehu drops the Lightning Storm on top of Dashboard. Another ultimate in by Sybil. Will hold Dashboard in place, throws out the shield, throws out the detonator. Nehu will take away and get that kill. And now Cope Baby and Chronic will make sure that Mando cannot enter the fray and put up 2 more now for My Fault B.
Yeah, Mando Warrior has not been allowed to get involved in the center of the map. Again, Sybil just getting a validation in his decision to go towards beads in that first slot. And My Fault B have been doing such a good job of just dictating the aggression here. We saw that it was an engage from SOPS time. Nehu disengages himself by dropping Lightning Storm at his feet, just as Zeus's do. It's essentially like a squid dropping ink. He's like, I'm done here, and just applies damage at the exact same time. Nobody wants to line up against a 2-level up red buff Zeus who's already got his helmet as well as the Spear of Desolation finished up. Someone has got to start putting pressure onto Nehu. Jinku Bang potentially could do it, but he doesn't want to be the one to initiate first. Likely you want Dashboard in first, try to force out those beads, and then Ragnarok can start to find some value. Nehu has not made his way back to base just yet, so no second relic available to him. Aegis likely going to be the pickup. That damage immunity going to go a long way, especially considering how safe this Zeus has already been.
I mean, it almost feels like a bait with this blink out of Cope Baby. It's making him seem like the target to go to. But finally, some initiation on Nehu. Beads burned early, but no pickup, no bite after. Jinku Bang just dies in the midst of the fight. No Lightning Storm even necessary out of Nehu. SOPS gonna get away from the Petrify, but he's not gonna get away from the rest of the damage. Cope surrounding him. Nehu throws out the last auto to get the kill. Lightning Storm just off the mark as Dashboard leaps away. But there aren't too many other places that this Bacchus can go, especially that belly flop down so long. Good pool will make sure to take him out of that belch. And Cope Baby will just chase him out for the last hit. Just needs that Piranha Onslaught to get him, and that'll be the kill. 3 up again for My Fault B.
SOPS time blanked at the 11-minute mark, man. This golden experience is getting out of hand. Not a single neutral objective has fallen as of yet, but SOPS time have not let off the gas, have they? I mean, I like the play from Jinku Bang. He goes for the classic Fenrir. I'm going to go into Ragnarok and stand next to you. I'm going to be really scary. You better use your beads. And Nehu says, oh, word, I'll beads, but you're going to die because you're standing on top of a shield and chain lightning on your own. And that's exactly how it goes down. Now Jinku Bang kind of learning, oh, no, I'm level 10. I can't really fight just about anybody. Chronic teaches him the lesson of those are my back camps now. Walks up, drops him down to half HP, and sends him back to base. Jinku Bang, 3 levels down and not farming.
3 levels down, a tier of an item down still. Chronic has finished up a Frostbound Hammer. SOPS used the Aegis from the Eagles rally, but he should have saved it for the detonate out of Nehu instead. Dashboard rooted in place, stuck under the tower. Luckily for him, no detonate just yet to end his life. And it will not be enough damage. Needed just a little bit more there. But 9-0 so far for My Fault B. 4 of those on this mid lane. Zeus already got his penetration online with that Spirit of Desolation. Now, going back to that Void Stone that we've seen so popular for him.
Yeah, just a little bit more survivability for Nehu going forward. And defense from ahead is massive value. Hybrid items from ahead feel really, really good. Now SOPS damage going to take a pretty major hit. Jinku Bang already playing at a massive deficit. 3 levels down on Nehu, 2 levels down on his direct correlation. Cope Baby in the jungle, so he doesn't really have all the item output. He's going down that bruiser tree as well, so not going to get the full value of defense or attack damage at this point. So a little bit tankier, but not tanky enough that I think Nehu's going to care. A little bit more damage, but not enough damage that Nehu's going to care about that one either. Jinku Bang is just there for the ultimate right now. He is just there to pick people up, and he still has 30 seconds left before Nehu's beads are back and available. That's an opportunity, a window that needs to be executed on.
Sybil is just casually walking through the autos of Chinfu, but there are 3 other players from SOPS time who want to get the kill on this tree. Petrify used early, as well as the ultimate through, and they can finally, potentially, at least get their first one on the board. Diesel does get it, but Jinku Bang credited to the kill here. Diesel will go down, so finally SOPS time have put themselves on the board, punished the greedy pathing here of Sybil to go for that obelisk steal. And at least it's in that dual lane, gets something going.
Yeah, Sybil holds on to the beads, realizing that there's just about a 0% chance he walks out of that one alive, and Diesel doesn't get the memo. It's like, yo, this fight looks kind of good. Loses his beads and his Aegis and his life after his support had so aptly kind of given up his own for him. So, dual lane of My Fault B takes a spill at the 14-minute mark. Chinfu going to optimize on that perfectly by taking out the Tier 1 mid tower. But what was the response from My Fault B elsewhere on the map? Oh, it's a massive rotation from SOPS time. Let's take a Tier 1 mid tower. That is the most valuable Tier 1 tower in the game. Doesn't matter if you're going to Pyromancer or Gold Fury. Generally, when teams start to retreat, they start to funnel in towards the center of the map. And now, that bastion of safety has been lost to SOPS time.
And it's not just that Tier 1 tower. Pyromancer also picked up by My Fault B. So the Tier 1 that was taken on that left side, the 2 kills that SOPS time had finally been able to get themselves to try to close up that lead, has been nullified entirely. It's 8,000 gold. Nearly 10,000 experience up for My Fault B here 15 minutes in. You can already see some ward establishment now out of SOPS time. They want to make sure that a Fire Giant doesn't get snuck away. They want to make sure that they can't lose out on much more gold because they don't have much time left as far as losing out on gold is concerned.
Yeah, no, gold is... it's already pretty bad. I'm going to be completely candid. SOPS time's gold deficit that they're playing into right now, 15 minutes in, is stifling. I'd argue that My Fault B can do just about whatever it is they want on the map. And seems like they want to go for a purple buff invade.
Well, last time it was a 4 versus 2 for SOPS time. Now it's a 3 versus 2 for My Fault B. Cope Baby will willingly take up this tower.
You sure?
Kill on Chinfu. He probably doesn't want to much longer because it will be a trade out there.
Oh, no.
And now it's 4 players from My Fault B grouped up here. Mando Warrior misses out on the cage. And a nice little pull from Sybil just to add insult to injury. Maybe then get a kill on this Odin. That Frostbound Hammer out of Chronic. So disgusting to keep him essentially locked down.
Yeah, I'm getting real sick of these Frostbound Warriors. They just keep getting away with it. Mando Warrior leaps in aggressive. Sybil no good with the root, so Mando gets to maintain his HP. That was a risky play for the Odin. Sure, incredibly survivable, but no cage available and no leap. Had that root connected, Nehu would have put in the work. Instead, he's working on the Tier 1 tower, which will fall down with 0 opposition. But now it's SOPS time's turn to try and make the exact same play that we saw from My Fault B. Pressure my duo, we'll go mid. Agni, though, He's just going for backpams.
Root's down by Sibyl. He used it to try and catch out Dashboard, who was running through the jungle. And now we have Jingu Bang coming into the top side of the fight to make this a 4v3. Stun does hit 2 from Dashboard. And one more onto Nayu. Belly flop in, does man slam 3. Bird Bomb also hits 3. And Eagles Rally, though, out of Chronic's going to put Dashboard at critical health. It'll be Chronic who takes him out. Lightning Storm inside the cage. Jingu Bang, that's not where you want to be.
Not at all. Mando Warrior on the retreat as he just gets to count on his hand. 2 fingers. That's how many teammates he lost in that engagement. And, well, Tier 2 tower probably going to go down as well. SOPS time, they get a great engage. 3-man knock-up, 3-man bird bomb. You're burning relics at the very offset of the engagement, but still losing out on the fight, and that is a byproduct of the deficit that they're playing into right now. Doesn't matter if you're able to find phenomenal engagements if you just haven't got the damage to follow up.
It's going to be Tier 2, or it's Tier 1 tower left, Tier 2 tower left, and now Tier 2 tower in mid. A massive 3,500 gold swing in just objectives alone. That doesn't even count the kills that MyFaultB was able to get on top of those structures. Only 1 tower left standing as a safe place for SOPS time, and I'm not even sure I can call a Tier 2 tower a safe place for them. Nayu will square off with SOPS. They'll trade out health bars for the most part here, but Mando Warrior, I don't even think trying to secure your blue buff is a good call. You're 3 levels down to Chronic, and just about everybody is 2 to 3 levels down, aside from Chinfu, the only one ahead so far on SOPS time.
Yeah, good for Chinfu finding some farm on the opposite side. He had gone towards mid in that fight and picked up at least 1 wave, but you don't really have the damage output. I'm concerned to make up for the deficit of the rest of your team. MyFaultB essentially has free reign of the map now. There is silver linings, though. SOPS time can go to the opposite objective that MyFaultB does, or maybe just dive on their own. Nayu
Will go down. Good Dark Portal out of Chinfu to capitalize off the Ragnarok, and that's the second time that we see Nayu now have to use those beads against Jingu Bang, but this time comes up fruitful because there's nobody else around Nayu to try and capitalize off the fact of how greedy Jingu Bang is being with these leaps in. And that might be the ultimate punch they can get. A massive Eagles rally in the backline, though, as Dashboard and Mando Warrior knocked up by the ultimate from the Sylvanas, but Cope Baby is just Wing through the backline. He's picked up 1, and he should get a second one on SOPS. They'll take him down with the Prana Onslaught, and now Mando has to run as far as he can. But once again, Chinfu, nowhere to be seen in these fights. He's going for these split pushes.
And that's why he's ahead, man, all right? That's that Sigma male grind set. He's looking out for numero uno. Chinfu doesn't care about the squad. SOPS time doesn't matter this, man. He's worried about Chinfu.
Chinfu might want to worry about the person who's currently batting his head in right now. Chronic is staring him down, but Chronic is losing this boxing match for the time being. The mid lane Phoenix goes away.
Where's Chinfu?
Mando Warrior will make his way. No, he will not. Diesel weaves in 1 final auto immediately off the landing from Mando. And that'll be a nice little kill there to get 17 on the board for MyFaultB and the first Phoenix down.
1 Phoenix was really all it took, right, to break the base. I'm not even certain that we're going to see MyFaultB go over towards the Fire Giant. Doesn't seem like they've needed it in any of these fights. I like to equate Fire Giant to about a 10,000 gold lead. You've already got it. What is 20,000 gold? That's a crazy number. I don't want to think about it at all. What I do want to think about is the hero of SOPS time, Chinfu. 3-1-1 right now. That's a 3 KDA, 3.5 to be exact. That's impressive.
Pretty good one here. If they can get a kill on Nayu, it'd be even better for SOPS time, and they do. And they give it over to Chinfu. Maybe they can get him another one here. But Chronic is very tanky on this Bologna, will not go down yet. And instead, SOPS time off their kill. They want to try and get some extra gold in their pockets. They'll take down a Pyromancer to add 500 more. But that only kind of mitigates this massive lead that's been built up here by MyFaultB. 11,000 up for the Chaos team.
Yeah, I'm surprised that SOPS time don't go for the wild Fire Giant pool. I know that Chronic was standing nearby, but when you're playing into a deficit like this and taking such a key target out like Zeus, you got to think those high-risk plays are a little bit more valuable. They've got great DPS on objective, Wind Demon, already Silver Branch as well, but instead, go for the easier of the 2 plays.
Cage will catch Cope. He'll have to use his ult to get out, but Dashboard finds a double belly flop. Diesel, though, finds an even bigger Petrify, a triple knockup by Sybil, and that's 2 of them in dangerous health. One makes it out, and it's just Jingu Bang. And trying to find under the towers, not the call here, Mando. Diesel takes his life out. Jingu Bang does manage to make it back to base. And so far, it's a 2-for-1 trade earlier. SOPS loses the beads out of the slow, and a nice overhead kick by Cope, but a miss on the root will have to be picked up by Chronic instead, who gets him with the Scourge.
Who cares if you pick up SOPS, man? I know he's in the title, all right? Titular SOPS, but Chinfu still draws breath, and you know what? That means that SOPS time, the team, still draws breath. Fire Giant pulled out 50% down, but these fools, Chronic, Cope, they're walking at the hero of this squad. Give up. You're not killing him.
Jingabe's going to try and deliver Cope to the hero and see if the hero can come up big for them, and he is. Look at the crit swinging through. Cope has the overhead kick, but Chronic will at least punish Jingabang for trying to take them to the hero play here. Inside goes Dashboard. They will not connect with that belly flop, while the rest of the team of My Fault B does take the Fire Giant, takes that last tower on the map, and will continue their surge up this right side lane.
Fire Giant on all 5 members, but a couple of targets low already. Sybil going to be resustaining pretty quickly with his kit and Fire Giant, and well, Mando Warrior, I'm not sure you're tanky enough to stop these guys.
Oh baby finds 2 with the ult in the back line. Dashboard doesn't get anybody with the stun there, and SOPS will quickly dash away. Right side Phoenix is gone, but it's a 4 versus 5 defense at this Titan. This is going to be a hard ask outside of My Fault B to close this one out, but maybe with the help of that Lightning Storm, they can get something done. Nayu picks up SOPS to start the fight out. Sybil is low. Chinfu does get it out there, but Cope takes out Dashboard. Diesel takes down the hero, and that's all that My Fault B need now to take out the Titan.
Clean dub for My Fault B, man. That was a dominant performance from minute 0. Nehu gets off to a roaring start. Zeus from ahead, pretty hard to beat. Chronic gets 2-man dived or ganked in the soul lane, gets a double kill. That's a pretty hard start, pretty hard to stop. And ahead, Bologna, you just weren't quite able to transition any of the small wins that we saw from SOPS time into an actual tangible lead. You get a kill here, you get a kill there, but it wasn't a Gold Fury on the tail end. It's not the stuff after the stuff. Yeah, the stuff was already taken. What do you do about that? What do you do about that? Chinfu's out here popping off, man. Your ADC can't do it all.
Chinfu did go kind of wild there. 5-2, I think, to end the game out there. 5 of the 6 kills for his team, but unfortunately, Chinfu is not enough to bring SOPS time a victory here. That one will go to My Fault B, and we'll go to a break and come back for game number 2 right after this. Hello and welcome back to the SCC Qualifiers set number 4. Game number 1 now done. My Fault B with a very commanding performance here in game number 1. Slow burn to start out as far as it's concerned, but once those first 3 kills came online, the gold lead and My Fault B never slowed down once, Mifflin. Just complete control this entire game.
Yeah, these are the hardest games to try and analyze and break down, right? Because it was just a couple of micro mistakes throughout the early game that really slow down SOPS time. Specifically, I saw 3 times Fenrir pulled somebody into a tower for the entire duration of Ragnarok, and they just like limp away, and it's actually just the entirety of SOPS time that dies for it. Had they got those kills, that could have been a completely different game. But they simply did not, so we got to be results-based in our analysis, and well, maybe that's just not how you want to play going forward. My Fault B, though, got to give credit where it's due. Every single time they found something, they got something afterward, be it an objective, a camp steal, just clearing out some waves, proxying, denying farm, and they really leveraged that aggression very well. Jinkubang in particular was not allowed to be anywhere on the map. Anytime he stepped up to a back camps, somebody who was 3 levels up, 2-3 levels up, walked at him and sent him back to base, either in a body bag or, you know, in a cast.
And this, I think it was right before this fight was one of the first times that we see Ragnarok used against Neu, the Zeus player, probably the person that you want to be picking up and bringing back under a tier 1 tower, but that was one of the first times that the beads were really threatened by any of these players on the map. That Ragnarok was just not getting the value for beads burning like they would maybe hope. Dashboard wasn't able to get in there and burn those, even though despite the fact he's getting 2- and 3-man belly flops the entire game through, by the time that he's finally able to actually get what could have been impactful flops, the rest of My Fault B are just circling around the SOPS time team.
Yeah, 3-man knockup, and that bought him about, what, 0.25 seconds until they touched the ground, and then he immediately died afterward. The Bacchus just did not have the tankiness he needed to look for these engages, despite finding phenomenal placement of these abilities. Doesn't super matter, because you just die immediately afterward.
5-0-10 on Chronic, Cope with 8-1, Neu 6-2. Impressive stat lines across the board, even Diesel finding a 5-1 game on this Medusa. Very quiet in the early game as far as it was concerned. Not a whole lot of action truly happening in that duo lane outside of kind of that initial squabbles that we see when you walk into duo lane, your supports pop frenzy, you kind of box out a little bit there. But Shinfu having the most impressive performance across the board as far as his KDA compared to the remainder of the team and his damage output. 19,000, topping the charts out here.
You thought I was gassing him up for nothing?
No, I mean, you're over here gassing him up. I'm looking at his KDA, and I'm appreciating that out here, and especially when he's topping 19,000 damage more than anybody else. Maybe this is the hero that this team needs.
And he's the sub, by the way. That's not main roster. Who's on the main roster? Who did he replace? Yeah, Big Yuji. Watch out, man. We're in Shinfu Dynasty.
Might be coming for your spot there, Big Yuji. Might need to watch out in your upcoming sets because you may have a replacement right on the horizon. But speaking of being on the horizon, we're on the horizon now. Game number 2 for the picks and bans. Let's jump right into those and see what kind of adaptations need to be made here because as far as pressure goes, I mean, you can't ask for much more in the dual lane besides Bacchus and Izanami. Agni maybe a little bit slower to start the early game out, but still one of the better late game mages you can get to, Mifflin.
No, and like literally the first 2 items are all you need. Once you get that flat pen available, your damage output is just so good on that pick. If anything, maybe SOPS time like bans out the Zeus. It felt like even when they were closing gap onto that guy, the damage output was just a little bit too much to deal with. That's why I was really advocating for Fenrir through support. If you're just going to be the guy who's picking somebody up and hoping that somebody else kills him, that's when you need the tankiness, so that he can walk up to a Zeus, find the Ragnarok, and not die to a chain lightning. The couple of times where he did close gap, we just see a pre-beads from Zeus, and then he's sitting there like, okay, well, when that beads is done, I'm going to pick you up, and I'm going to put you in a tower. He was dead before those beats were done.
Yeah, he never got an opportunity to actually pick up the Zeus. It was, I'm going to stand by the Zeus at that point in time.
Menacingly.
Very menacingly. Breathing right down his neck, probably drooling on at that point. It's just not a fun time for the Zeus to sit there and stare.
That's a lot of imagery, man.
He does end up getting lost on that one. It will be another Fenrir pick, though, by SOPS time. And now it kind of begs the question, do we maybe see this one go over to the support role? Still a lot of options for the jungle available. Still a lot of options for the support role available there. I mean, we saw a last pick Bacchus, which kind of pushed this Fenrir into going towards the jungle. Do you expect Mifflin to see this Fenrir go jungle one more time?
I hope not. I mean, Fenrir jungle works well. It works okay so far, right? Like, you've got good damage output. If you pull a lead, it's really hard to stop this guy, but if we see the exact same thing again, which we are, by the way, P's and B's running the exact same as they were in Game 1, you're really struggling to finish off some of those skills. This Khepri, though, was banned out in the second phase of bans in Game 1, and this is going to make it a lot easier for that Fenrir to go for that same style of dive. Scarab's Blessing, acting as that safety net, is going to allow Jinku Bang to try and find some of these Ragnaroks and priority targets. That said, if you're getting revived during Ragnarok, you lose the benefit of Ragnarok. It's not as if he's dragging you over with him in spirit form. So maybe a little bit more tankiness from the Fenrir out of the jungle, but you don't have a lot of damage coming from your support anyway because it's a Khepri. Just really feel like this Fen could have got a lot more value, especially against a Zeus again, through support.
Well, will be Medusa, Zeus, and Sylvanas, so still keeping at least 3 of their picks from game number 1 here on the side of My Fault B. That Khepri now slotting in to kind of help out that Fenrir and Izanami means that we can start seeing some of the mage bans come out here from My Fault B. They'll start with a Persephone and then a Daji on the other side. Daji, one of those gods who really does excel up against gods that really don't have a way of dealing with the CC that she provides to the pal out. Izanami, Khepri, both gods that would really suffer from that pick. But My Fault B, they're just running down the list of the big mages right now. I mean, Persephone and Thoth, probably the best 2 to burn. You still leave that Agni up there.
You think they're worried about it?
I don't think they are if it's going to go like game 1 did, but still a god that you do need to be concerned about, just at least a little.
Yeah, no, Agni is definitely worth a ban, but maybe Thoth and Persephone a little bit more consistent, especially Persephone with the draft that soft times have right now. That Grass with Death could act as a beads burner. Similarly, Polymorph from Hera can act as a beads burner. Fearless from Tyr can act as a beads burner. So maybe it's not just going to be up to Jinku Bang this time around to be the one burning beads, circling back, and then getting another Ragnarok on these priority targets. Having it be single target is so difficult. So now looking at what SOPS time have got top to bottom, I'd argue they've facilitated the Fenrir through the jungle much, much better. Khepri, Hera, Tyr, even Izanami to a certain extent can burn away that defensive relic on their own and then create scenarios where Fenrir can at least pick somebody up.
I was about to question the Hercules for a moment, and then I remembered who the jungler was on this team. This is a pick that Cope has gone to not super often, but it's ones that he really loves going towards with this Hercules. You get to be big bully style. You can build a lot of early game damage, especially with how popular Jotun's Wrath has been for these junglers. We'll see if that's where he elects to go here, and that's where I'm putting my monies on to see where this Hercules goes in game number 2. SOPS time needs to get a big win here to keep their winner's bracket dreams alive, and they're going to put a lot of that hope on SOPS with Hera and Mando Warrior on the tier. So going with another Warrior here in game number 2. Again, I apologize, Mando, for thinking that you wouldn't play Warriors at least some point during this weekend. Now, you proved me wrong twice. But going back into this duo lane here, this Khepri versus this Sylvanas, 2 Guardians that can provide a decent bit of clear. But probably the most interesting thing about these 2 is the fact that we're seeing an emblem picked up by Dashboard. I think this is the first time we've seen Horrific Emblem picked up.
Well, you're going to find some value from it. It's another way to burn beads, I suppose. And I don't think anyone from My Fault B is expecting it, so there's no Heavenly in that first slot, which would completely invalidate the slow from Horrific Emblem. But Nehu going to struggle up against this. Cope going to struggle as well. I like this start. It's going to help you out with your aggression a fair bit. But how aggressive are you going to be as Sylvanas and Izanami? Sure, you've got lane clear, to be sure. No one's questioning that. You're going to be able to clear these waves very fast. But you're meeting up with a Medusa.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. The damage out here right away. Sybil and Diesel put up a very early first blood. Who cares about your Horrific Emblem? We've got a frenzy. We just do more damage, says My Fault B, and they put the first kill on the board.
Oh, no, I'm slow. Here's the thing about Lacerate. Doesn't care about Horrific Emblem. Similarly, Cope doesn't care about Jinku Bang. That damage output is wild. Jinku, maybe not expecting a Mannequin Scepter Hercules jungle. Just took an auto attack fight and lost it because I don't know if you saw those yellow numbers. They pop up for 44 at this point. Luckily, Jinku does escape out of there with his life and gets to maintain his beads. I thought for a moment it may have been a misplay to see that push used so early.
Oh no, Mando is in danger. Cope does have both of his primary push and pull abilities, but misses the push. Maybe he can get the pull here to try and help out Chronic, just watching as Chronic is eating this damage from Bluestone. Gets the pickup. Throws an auto afterwards. They're going to have to be careful because Chronic and Cope are low. Jingu Bang is here, but it's going to be a push out. Gets the beats from Jingu Bang and a disarm right away. Cope is treading and playing with fire here. Mando will finally punish this jungle Hercules, take him down, and put SOPS time on the board early.
Yeah, Cope tries to stick around, thinks that he can maybe find the kill on a Jinku Bang who has dropped low, but Chronic was not trying to participate in that fight anymore. Similarly, was about 1/10 of his own HP, and pretty easy for Mando Warrior to walk on up. Totemaku might look like a wall, but it does not stop Fearless. Was able to utilize that to just work his way forward, and there was no counterplay from Cope after being caught out. No beads means no chance.
Dashboard almost gets caught out there by Sybil. Luckily for him, he does have a dash to get himself away from this Sylvanas. And going back in, I mean, this is the lead that Mando Warrior needs. Last game, it was a double kill over on that right side of the map. Put Mando Warrior behind, put Jingu Bang behind, and allowed Chronic to essentially become, this unkillable tank. Allowed Cope Baby to get a roaring start in the game. So keeping Cope Baby on this Mannequin Scepter Hercules. I can't believe I'm even saying those words right now.
What's wrong with it, man? Why do you hate it?
It just seems, I understand getting into the Mannequin's Hidden Blade is probably the route that he's going to go. It just seems so strange seeing Mannequin Scepter on a Hercules.
Yeah, generally it's going to be Bluestone, right? But we're jungle Hercules.
True.
We're already
True.
unorthodox. We gotta be making waves, and that's exactly what Cope is doing. And he nearly hit pay dirt for it. Remember back, he almost sold it out Jinku Bang on those back camps, but instead was like one auto short. We'll see if he can try and reprise that performance. Jinku Bang not playing with a whole lot of mana here, so I'm not sure what the plan is sticking around. Just going to take his one small camp and call it a dub for himself. I'm expecting Cope to find some pretty impactful rotations. So far has not left the soul lane. Maybe feels bad for how that gank panned out and wants to help his team.
Well, a nice guy to Cope to leave one Harpy there for the enemy jungler to take. Jingu Bang will be able to at least take this Alpha Harpy on the solo lane side. Chronic did have to leave that one alone as Mando Warrior expended that Lawbringer to try and get the action going, but Cope was able to get out of there quickly and still hold on to that blink. Going with it yet again, still not paying as much respect to the fact of what Ragnarok can do. I mean, last game, Ragnarok really wasn't a threat to him. The one time that he did get picked up and pulled under a tier 1 tower, he just used Mystic Rush and got himself out.
Yeah, doesn't have Mystic Rush this time, though. Just
No.
Driving Strike to create some space. But there's some CC immunity in the ultimate. If you're able to kind of time excavate properly, you might be able to get the value away from Ragnarok. That said, I think Soul Lane might be a misnomer. These guys have not left. Cope's been kind of sitting on these back camps, making sure Jinku Bang isn't able to pick those up. Jinku Bang's been soaking up a lot of Mando Warrior's farm. That could kind of deny some of that lead to Mando Warrior. I think it was about a full level, probably closer to about a half level now, as Chronic has not been splitting nearly as much.
That's going to be a blink for Cope to get past Mando. Bluestone not quite enough because the heal comes through. A driving strike against the wall and a Scourge from Chronic will make sure to take out the solo laner. Jingu Bang does manage to get the Ragnarok bite, but it's immuned out by Sybil. Lightning Storm way off the mark in the back line. Jingu Bang will make it out. They can't say the same for Mando as he got taken out during that fight.
He did. Well, you at least get the beads off of Jinku Bang. So next time the Eagles Rally Lightning Storm combo comes through, you're at least going to find 1 or 2 procs, and that would have been enough to finish off this kill. I wonder, had Nehu not dropped ultimate, whether or not Jinku Bang would have still used his beads. If he wouldn't have, it's value to lose out on that ultimate for Nehu. If he would have, maybe hold on to that cooldown next time. Hindsight 2020. My Fault B, though, are able to call themselves back into a favorable position. SOPS time off to a quick start, but it's been immediately mitigated.
Yeah, 1,000 gold up, 600 experience. Not a whole lot here 5 minutes in. So to the kills only being that 2-1. But I kind of want to go back over to this Chinfu Diesel matchup. You have the 2 subs playing out here. Chinfu was the carry that they needed last game. Unfortunately, he couldn't put out enough damage to carry the team to
Deserved,
a victory.
Not needed.
But does have about a half-level lead up over Diesel for the time being, despite the fact that it's only been those 2 in that dual lane for the longest time during this game.
So far, Chronic in some trouble yet again. It's been a 2v1 all this game. I don't know why he thought it would change now. Jinku Bang on the chase.
Eagles Rally is already down now because he had to use it, but he's going right back to Cope, hoping that this Hercules can save his life and brutalize just off the mark. The dash gets him out of range. Cope maybe pushed up against the wall, but it's a double root from Sybil. A pull in onto Mando. Jingu Bang is out. But can we say the same for Mando Warrior? No Lawbringer, no beads, and no way of escaping through. Dashboard does throw out the Scared's Blessing to help out Mando. That will proc and get the solo out.
I wonder, did Nehu use Detonate there? Doesn't wait out the Scared's Blessing at all? And okay, fair enough. Mando Warrior able to just escape out easily. And that's that safety net we were talking about during P's and B's. Dashboard makes an early rotation and alleviates some of that pressure, but leaves Chinfu alone. Diesel takes him out by the skin of his teeth, man. That was a brave play. One of the most wild games of chicken I've seen in Smite.
He just dove into an auto-attacking Izanami going right at him at that point. And, I mean, he mostly, I'm not going to necessarily say even a sense check on him by throwing out that Petrify, but just seeing if there was even a dash available. Chinfu either used it right before, and that's why he was so confident going for that just raw petrify right at him, but gets that damage, goes in, as you said, gets away with barely a sliver of health left.
Look at Chinfu's build. That is substandard, I'd say. Going for the mace in the second slot. Maybe Jotuns? You're going to get a little bit more CDR, your ultimate available a little bit more often. If you're worried about being aggressed on all the time, Dark Portal does feel pretty good, but now you're not winning a singular auto attack trade because Diesel simply auto attacks more often with a Balance Blade pickup.
Well, Chinfu does have that stem in his first ability, so he gets a little bit of attack speed to maybe make up for some of the loss of it initially, but yeah, I think you're right to point out it's very unorthodox to see a second mace, not just on a hunter, but on Izanami, probably of all hunters out here.
Yeah, no sustain built into the kit, except for Death Toll right now in the build, and well, that's already matched up on the other side. Gotta think that Diesel going to be going for Aussie here as Mando Warrior continues his aggressive warpath on the right-hand side of the map. Worth noting, though, splitting all that farm with Jinku Bang for the first 6 minutes of this game has finally come back to haunt him. It was a one entire level lead for Mando Warrior. It's been flipped on its head to Chronic.
Yeah, it's Chronic.
Is he okay?
Hey, Chronic, are you good over there, buddy? It looks like he might go down. I think he makes it back to the tower, but now he gets picked up by the Ragnarok. Argus drops on top of his dome, but Kopebi is zoning as best as he can. Jingu does manage to get a kill up against Neu, and Scarab's Blessing saves Dashboard's life, only for just a moment being. No detonate there to take him out now as Neu is already gone, and SOPS time are able to come up with a big pick.
They do. Dashboard makes it out with a sliver of HP. SOPS makes it out with a sliver. Even Jinku Bang was on less than 1/5 of his own HP bar and walks away from there. My Fault B just could not finish off any of their own individual kills. Scarab's Blessing finds massive value yet again. Generally, when Khepri uses it on himself, it just prolongs the inevitable, but somehow Dashboard was able to work his way out. I believe it was the root that caught the driving strike from Kopebi. Was no follow-up afterward, and, well, that's a free escape for SOPS time, who have, again, found themselves on the brink. Still a pretty large deficit that they're playing into, but these fights are going much better in Game 2.
Now, I'm going to try and do a very quick bit of math here, Mifflin, as best as I can,
Good
if
luck.
I even get a moment to do so. The Tier 1 mace does end up getting sold by Chinfu. Instead to go for the Tier 2 Balance Blade. We'll get back to that in a moment. Big push out of Mando. Warrior finds 2 with the Fearless and the Power Cleave after. Chronic rooted in place, pulled back by Dashboard, and taken out by Jingu Bang. Kopebi can do nothing but watch as his ally goes down, and it might even be him too, unless Mando decides to back himself away from this Tier 1 tower.
SOPS time decided where they wanted to play this game early on, and it has not changed in the last 10 minutes. Solo lane pressure is the name of the game here. 3-man grouping from the Order side. Nehu going to try and match that rotation. If Cope can connect the pull, that should be the kill, but Mando Warrior just a little bit too fast here, walks himself out.
A lot of extra HP and some magic prots now with the way of that Winged Blade picked up to kind of help himself in this early game up against Neu. Brief pause in the action here. And I was going to try and go into a quick math, but then we got interrupted by a fight.
Time.
Tier 1 mace sold. You know, that's a 600, 650 item that you pick up. Sell it away. You only get like 400 gold out of it, so you're losing about 200 there. And then you're going to Balance Blade. He's already like 700 gold down, so it's more like getting closer to 1,000 gold so far that this hunter is down up against the Medusa. That's the only time I'm ever going to try and do some quick math here.
Dude, Flare Boot's probably having an aneurysm because there's no way that was right? But no, you're right to bring it up. The essence of it is correct. It may be just a misclick picking up that mace for Chinfu, decides he really does actually want some sustain, and, well, Diesel's playing with an XP lead and now an even larger artificial gold lead over Chinfu. That's tough, man. This Izanami generally is a pick that you take because you want to have dominance in the dual lane. You want to be able to establish pressure, open up the door toward these purple buff invades, these gold furies. That hasn't been the case just yet. It has been a Diesel city over in the long.
It's been an uphill battle for Chinfu in this left side of the map. Diesel does have the advantage. 2-0 for him, 0-2 for Chinfu so far. SOPS on this Hera, I'm curious to see where his damage output is going to come as this game goes on. Since Celestial Legion Helm and a Divine Ruin by both of these mages. But where Zeus has gone for this Eye of the Jungle, we see SOPS opted to going towards this Conduit Gem as his starter item.
Yeah, Conduit Gem going to give you a little bit more burst potential on the front end. Eye of the Jungle, though, is an incredibly strong upgrade come late game. Percentage defense, percentage power when you're inside the jungle, and where the most important fights fought, around the Fire Giant, around the Gold Fury, around the Pyromancer, all in the jungle. And if you're going to be diving anybody on the side of My Fault B, who is that? Probably Nehu. So you're getting power, you're getting defense, you're getting survivability, and you're already a Zeus who can lock down these jungle paths. That's pretty standard, I'd say, now for that build. That said, SOPS is nothing to scoff at this point. Sure, he goes for a little bit more so of a bruiser item in that first slot, kind of leaning into the survivability of Hera. Polymorph has great self-peel. You've got the HP shield as well. But the burst potential, once you start to look at some of these Conduit gem upgrades, is incredibly high.
And we did see a slight buff come to Hera with this recent patch, too. She did get a little bit of extra base damage on Polymorph. Argus as well got a nice little protection buff, so he's a little bit tankier as the game does go on. And Argus essentially acting as kind of that sixth man for the team here. The teams will need to keep their eyes out for whenever that pet drops down. Nayu specifically will probably have to be the one who really wants to be careful, because Argus can do some pretty chunky damage.
Look, if SOPS is dropping Argus on Nehu, I'd argue Nehu's already dead, right? Like, if the mid laner is able to close gap onto the mid laner, that fight's probably going really well for SOPS time already. So, you're right to say it. I don't think Nehu lives those.
It's going to be a rough one if SOPS can get to that back line. Though I don't think you want to have SOPS back there at any time through. Polymorph, as you said, just an incredible ability. I mean, max rank, I believe it's 2 seconds that you transform them there. Polymorph acting as both a silence and a disarm, because they just can't do anything but walk around at that time. I think even has a slow on it too, which is just disgusting.
Or just the burst damage, right? Like, it's essentially Celestial Beam, right? Or Solar Beam, or whatever you call it. What's Raw's first ability?
Celestial Beam.
I've got to trust myself, man. It's
You
essentially that ability, but it also CCs. Like, it's the exact same damage just about, has similar scaling, but also is a disarm, and then it also stops you from using your abilities. It's a cripple. It's just a very, very strong bit of kit there for Hera.
Nayu dove on by Jingu Bang. Wants to get those beats and will get them this time, but it's already after the bite. Shield and the Lightning Storm drop through Nayu, dealing a decent bit of damage, but he's getting bursted by Shinfu in the backline. Walks right back to the Hunter, and the hero of game 1 wants to make the plays here in game number 2. We'll pick up the double kill onto Diesel. Cope Baby is on the wrong side of this fight. Will blink back to his support and tries to take the boxing match up against the hero. Shinfu's got to use the Aegis to get out, and it's Chronic who puts Shinfu down. Eagles Rally finds 3, and that'll get the beads out of the Fenrir.
Dashboard, still low HP, but it seems like Chronic not willing to keep up that fight. Mando Warrior, though, on the other end, he is.
Chronic is in danger now. Quarter health on him. Polymorph does manage to clip Chronic, but the healing out of Sybil is enough to keep him alive for now. Mando Warrior still hunting for Cope, who's sitting barely over a quarter HP at this point. He'll dash and get some damage up against Sybil, but that should be the end of the road for Mando chasing out these kills. Instead, has his eyes... Well, never mind. He doesn't have the eyes set towards the red buff anymore.
Yeah, he's got his eyes on Cope Baby. Unfortunately for Mando, Cope Baby's the jungler and therefore has a speed buff. Despite Wingblade in the kit for this tier already, not quite fast enough to keep up with Cope on the other side, who just walks away. That's a bit of a loss there for Mando. It's going to be about 2 minutes till he gets that blink back, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. I'm noticing a common thread in these team fights, though, for My Fault B. Scarab's Blessing is just working, man. It doesn't matter how isolated somebody is. It doesn't matter how much damage you've got confirmed. They're finishing off these kills with Scarab's Blessing still there. And it's not as if they're not waiting. I've seen them wait out the ability a couple times now. They just pop it like 0.5 seconds too early, like a second too early every single time. And, well, everyone who's been Scarab's Blessing has just survived off the tail end as well. Dashboard getting so much value from this ability, but I'd argue it's more so misplay from My Fault B.
Goodness gracious, this build from Cope Baby is going to start chunking as this game goes on. I mean, Jotun's Wrath, we were already talking about that one, even in the picks and bans being a potential pickup here, but Hydra's Lament, and now a Bloodforge, third item as he's building towards. A lot of damage online. Do you think maybe we'll see a Rangda's mask picked up this Hercules?
God, I hope not, man. I'm not a massive fan of Rangda's. It does make you do a lot of damage, but one of the main strengths of Hercules is his ability to stick around in these team fights for a very long time because he's got that massive heal in the third ability, and you don't really get a benefit from the heal if you're just dying immediately, and that's kind of what Rangda's does to you. So, I hope not, but, you know, chances are low, never zero.
It's true. 15, now 16 minutes in the game. Gold barely up here for My Fault B, about 1,000. Swinging here and there. Experience pretty much even across the board. SOPS time does have a very slight XP lead. And Mando, who was sharing a lot of experience early on, has been getting a lot more freeform himself. He's brought himself back in. Is now getting an opportunity for SOPS time to try up this Gold Fury. Started it up, but we'll drop it right away as soon as Nehu steps up. And Dashboard eats a lot of the damage of the combo that the Zeus throws out. Just a little bit of a heat check here out of SOPS time, seeing how long it would take My Fault B to get over to this Fury.
It's worth noting that Gold Fury's side of the map is Diesel's side of the map. Diesel has been having dominance over there for the majority of the game and therefore should have the advantage on rotation in towards that objective, and seems like that was the case there as well. Medusa turns the corner, and SOPS Time says, oh wait, that guy's actually ahead, despite some of these fights going really well for us elsewhere on the map. So if any team is going to be aggressing on gold right now, I'd argue that it should likely be My Fault B. They've got superior burn potential between Zeus and Medusa. The secure is good, but namely, it's the space control that I'm really attributing to My Fault B. Between Chronic, Cope, and Sybil, it's going to be very hard to walk through that three-man core.
Something we brought up at the very beginning of the game was this horrific emblem out of SOPS Time's support here in Dashboard. Well, now that's been answered by that Heavenly Wings you were talking about as well to try and counter out the slow factor of it. That is the next relic picked up by Sybil as he just ticked into level 12. And I was waiting to see what his level 12 relic would be. It does end up being an answer to try and counter out some of that slow. But SOPS Time start up the Pyromancer, a dash in by Dashboard just off the mark. And Chronic will have to sit inside a couple pools of lava for the time being. Pull up by Cope Baby, a pickup onto Chronic. We'll get the beads away from the Ragnarok, and also Cope Baby losing some beads off a nice Fearless by Mando.
Slow rotations from My Fault B. That was a four-man stack from SOPS Time that goes unanswered. Mando Warrior dives incredibly deep there. Jinku Bang jumps aggressively over a wall and is met with zero opposition. Two defensive relics lost to My Fault B. And had Diesel been there, had Nebu just been nearby, I think that overcommitment from SOPS Time likely would have been punished. But instead, good knowledge, good map awareness from SOPS Time, realizing that they are allowed to go for that aggressive play, and they come up massive for it. Now Cope and Chronic, very susceptible to Jinku Bang.
Man, look at the tier meta that's come back here. I mean, we have the Wing Blade and the Relic Dagger, extra movement speed coming back on this solo lane warrior, and working towards a hide of the Urchin. No, not hide of the Urchin. That one would go towards Spirit Robe or Mantle, most likely here. Spirit Robe, I mean, it would be a good option. I mean, Tyr, though, doesn't really care about CC as much, though, with his passive. You think maybe he'll just go to the Mantle instead?
Yeah, if I had to guess, Mantle is just really strong, and considering how Mando Warrior's been placing himself in these team fights, you're probably getting the value from that passive as well, applying a stun once you hit an HP threshold. But just because Tyr doesn't super care about CC doesn't mean you aren't still getting the value of Spirit Robe. Sure, the stuns are only going to last like 1 second max or any form of CC like that, but the defense is unaffected. You don't have to be CC'd for a period of time before you get that passive proc from Spirit Robe.
Mando doesn't get to steal away the blue buff, but he buys time for his team to take the Pyromancer. But all that's done is now buy time for My Fault B to grab a Gold Fury. Shinfu nowhere to be seen as objectives get traded out by these two teams. At the end of it, My Fault B is going to be the one on top with the advantage. But now taking a Tier 1 tower at least puts a little bit more in the pockets of SOPS Time.
Yeah, some nuance in that math, and I'm not willing to do it. So I'll just go ahead and say that the charts have My Fault B in the lead, so I'll say My Fault B come out ahead on that trade. Worth noting, though, that Pyromancer's passive is pretty important at this portion of the game. Sure, just a little bit of additional movement speed coming out of base doesn't sound great on paper, but 20 minutes in, when your movement speed out of base is leading you to a Fire Giant, feels pretty good going forward. So I'll keep my eyes on both of these teams. I'm expecting to see a 5-on-5 engagement on the right side very shortly. Gold lead for My Fault B at this point it's paltry. It's a paltry sum. 2,000 gold 20 minutes in, not even necessarily worth concerning yourself with. So instead, I think at a dead even match, we're going to get a good indicator of which one of these teams is feeling more confident based on the rotation path of these ADCs. Is it going to be Diesel that leaves first, or is it going to be Chinfu?
It's not just the gold that's a very minimal gap here. I mean, experience is basically negligible across the board. A level bouncing back and forth between each of these players. At this point, the only one hitting level 20 is Diesel, so he can finish up that first starter item on the board. He already has that Silver Branch Bow, which has become kind of the more popular percent pen item that these Hunter players have been picking up, usually slotting it in right after they get that crit online.
Yeah, I've heard it described as selfish executioners, right? Do you want to deal more damage yourself, or do you want everyone else to deal more damage? Diesel's worried about numero uno, so Silver Branch picked up, and it has a pretty strong passive that when you get a little bit more attack speed, you're going to be able to benefit from very easily going forward, and it's been mirrored on the other side. Chinfu similarly has ticked over to level 20 and has finished up his own Silver Branch.
Yeah, so it's going to be even across the build state for these two Hunters, and even on the levels now. So they are essentially on an even playing field when it comes to these Hunters squaring off into these team fights. And that's where a lot of the damage came through in that last skirmish around the mid lane. Chinfu was able to pick up a double kill, get his team going there. Dashboard getting a res off in the midst of it, really keeping that team alive. So being at an even state with the way that Shinfu's been playing just these 2 games alone, looking pretty good here for SOPS time so far in Game 2.
It is. It's much closer, right? Much more even
much
state
closer.
in this one. But I think the only thing that's going to separate these 2 squads now is the Fire Giant. We've danced around as much as we can. Pyromancer no longer available. Gold Fury no longer available. I don't think either team has got enough of a lead where they can feel confident in a siege situation. So we have to evaluate which team has better secure, better burn. And I think I'd give that edge still over towards My Fault B. A Zeus and a Hunter are just going to be able to confirm these objectives incredibly easily. But as far as just raw damage confirmation, that's also them. You know, Zeus detonate feels pretty good. Chain Lightning
nice.
pretty nice as well. Whereas for Hera to confirm, you either have to drop Argus or maybe even a Polymorph. It's relatively low range as well, so she's going to have to kind of dedicate her body to some of these engagements. And you don't want to be walking up into the triple front line of My Fault B.
Mando Warrior, Blink Fearless, Sybil in danger, picked up by the Ragnarok, and then thrown into the grasp of a Khepri. And that's going to be support player down now on the side of My Fault B. And that seems to be the call here for SOPS time. They're going to walk over towards that Fire Giant. The last standing major objective on the map for the time being. Chronic teleports in, but the Fire Giant hasn't really been burned yet. It's just Argus slamming away at it.
Good damage output from Nehu. Drops SOPS and Mando Warrior to just around half HP. That is going to keep SOPS time a little bit more trepidatious on moving in towards this objective despite having the massive advantage of removing Sybil from the map. Fire Giant completely reset. SOPS time completely reset as well. Starting to head back towards base. My Fault B, they're going to do what they can on the map, and as of now, that's the tier 1 tower. Easy pickup. Going to make it even harder for SOPS time to want to commit themselves to these objectives. That damage output from Nehu needs to be stopped. Somebody has got to close gap on this guy. Aegis, Beads, still both available. SOPS time has great dive. Tyr can get towards him pretty easily. That slow from Chain Lightning only going to make him faster now that he's got Winged Blade. Jinku Bang can burn the beads with Ragnarok. Dashboard's got Abduct. Chinfu even can get in there with a Dark Portal. But so far, none of that's happened. He's just been kind of free casting. Nehu, that is.
Yeah, Nehu's doing just fine. And I mean, Sybil was the one who died in that fight. So SOPS time says, all right, cool, let's head over towards the Fire Giant. And then it's My Fault B who's pushing them back, taking SOPS time's tier 1 tower in mid lane, and turning this fight around. Chronic will get shoved back by the Fearless. There's not much more follow-up beyond there. The Hunter isn't by them right away. Their mid laner's not standing there, so not a whole lot of capitalization off of that Fearless just yet from Mando. But he's been getting a lot of these Blink Fearlesses during these fights.
Fire Giant pulled out. It's My Fault B in first. Jinku Bang looking for the roundabout way into the fight, seeing if maybe he can get that flank. Fire Giant now reset. My Fault B, they want the engagement.
SOPS uses that Polymorph, and that was the go call for Cope, but he misses the pull right after the Blink. So that's the first big relic down of the team fight, and being Cope's primary initiation or disengage if he needs to. Make it a little bit harder here for My Fault B to get into this fight.
Yeah, Cope now going to have to take a more dedicated assassin role in these engagements, and well, he's got the damage output for it. Mannequin's Hidden Blade has been finished up, so whoever he does connect with will lose out on a significant portion of their HP immediately. So I expect to see Cope kind of play the edges of this next team fight, wait for the engagement to start up proper, and then engage himself. It's up now to either Sybil to start off the fight for My Fault B or Chronic. Both of these guys have got pretty consistent forms of CC, whereas SOPS time, it's pretty clear. Hey, no blink on Cope. Maybe we find Cope.
For now, they're going to find the Pyromancer that's respawned. And SOPS time will quickly burn that one away. Polymorph for the damage after should be enough to get it. Jingu Bang goes for Nehu in the back line. It needs a little bit of damage from the Zeus.
That's
not
massive.
A full detonate charge through. But now losing out on a second relic here, and probably one of the most important ones to get, are the beads off Nehu.
Yeah, Nehu, that cannot happen for My Fault B. It's just Jinku Bang walking in alone into the back line and says, oh, there's Nehu. I'm going to get him. And he just does it. Nobody in range from My Fault B to return some damage, to apply some CC, had anyone been nearby. Sybil, even Diesel to apply just a little bit of CC there. That Chain Lightning would have got a couple more procs, could have maybe potentially dropped Jinku Bang low, but instead it's Ragnarok trade for beads and no relics lost for anybody on SOPS time. They're feeling incredibly strong at this point. They know that Nehu still does not have beads for at least 90 seconds, 30 seconds left on Cope, even the teleport down on Chronic, so every bit of damage that SOPS time picks up from here on out is mega value.
I want to talk about some extra value in a relic here, Entangling Wings. upgraded now for Sybil. A nice AoE root whenever he pops that up against enemy teams. Still gives his teammates that extra little burst of movement speed. We're talking about getting some nice and somewhat easy setup for Cope Baby. That Earthbreaker, not always the easiest ability to confirm, but when they get locked in place, rooted, stop, can't really move away from it at that point. They can go to it, but a tier 1 tower call by the side of Sopsheim means that they lose the Fire Giant in an instant. Frenzy gets popped through, Fire Giant is gone, Dashboard shoved into the back line, and that's the end of the line for the Khepri. He'll pop that Scarab's Blessing on himself, and they'll willingly break it, but Sybil goes down into the midst of the fight. Dashboard is still back and alive and healthy after that Scarab's Blessing. Now he gets picked back up, but that might be the last thing that Jingu Bang gets to do. He's living on a sliver of health. Chinfu finds Chronic. Mando Warrior pushing Neu around in the backline, and Sopsheim is winning this fight despite the fact they lost the Fire Giant. Neu is going to go down to Mando Warrior. Diesel and Cope have to go on the retreat, and it's 3 down for My Fault B, and make it 4 as Sops and Argus walk in and take down the Hunter.
A circus of mistakes for My Fault B will cost them this game, man. Sopsheim walks in after the Fire Giant falls, and they execute pretty comically around that engage. Jinku Bang picks up Nehu, but Mando Warrior doesn't get the memo, uses the ultimate, jumps right over the Ragnarok, misses his own. It's the re-engage from My Fault B yet again, committing all of their damage into a Khepri, who has got Scarab's Blessing on himself, allows that reset. Jinku Bang walks out at like 1/100th of his HP bar, and 4 members strong on Sopsheim start to approach the base of My Fault B. 5 seconds left on this Bologna respawn. Maybe we don't see the Titan fall just yet, but that is a massive swing for the Order team. Gotta think, had My Fault B just walked away, they'd have had Fire Giant on all 5 members.
Instead, they decided to pick a fight in which they heavily lost. All 5 players losing out on that Fire Giant buff for only 1 on the side of Sopsheim. That gold advantage that My Fault B had earlier on, completely erased. That is now in favor of Sopsheim. They'll take not just the tier 2 in right side and mid, they'll take that mid Phoenix and a Primal Fury to boot. Sopsheim have turned this game on its head in an instant.
They have. I'm curious to see how Sopsheim decide to play the match from here on out, right? No Fire Giant on Sopsheim means that they're not super favored in some of these base sieges. Tier 1 tower on left, sure, go ahead. That's fine. Nobody's going to put up a defense there. Tier 2s, we might see some opposition from My Fault B, who have got a very strong defensive composition. Cope can pull you without having to dedicate himself in this CC. You've got Nehu who can lock down entire portions of the map with Lightning Storm. Sybil as well with his CC. Diesel with Petrify is going to be a lot easier to apply in these simplified engagements around towers, around Phoenixes. So we could see one of 2 scenarios where Sopsheim try and put some pressure on the left side of the map while they still have the enhanced minion waves in mid thanks to that mid Phoenix falling. Or we could see Sopsheim kind of spin their wheels for a little bit, farm up the map, try and confirm some of these buffs, maybe look for a couple of picks, and then get ready for this Fire Giant as it respawns. Instead, it's going to be the Prior. Sopsheim grouped up, take out the tier 1, approaching the tier 2. My Fault B, I don't think they should be demoralized just yet. Their defense is incredibly strong.
Well, they're going to start it here with at least a soft defense around this tier 2 tower. Dashboard rooted under the tower will soak up some of the damage. But now with the Zeus firing back, Mando and Dashboard will eat some of that poke from the Chain Lightning detonate. It'll be a slow start up here by Sopsheim, buying as much as they can. That mid Phoenix is down, which means that those fire minions are going to start pushing up that mid lane. You definitely cannot leave those unattended. They kept Cope Baby towards this middle end of the map, but a double root out of Dashboard and some good damage from the Royal Assault out of Sops will make sure that Sybil has to back up just a little bit further if they want to defend this tier 2.
Cope has now shown himself in mid, clearing out those enhanced waves, so Sopsheim have got a good idea of the positioning of the entirety of My Fault B. Jinku Bang setting up his camp in the jungle, making sure that Cope cannot go for the flank here. It's going to be a slow push. Sopsheim showing a lot of respect. That tier 2 tower has got a lot of HP as well.
It's all relics up except now for the blink by Mando. It sets up for the kill against Sybil. Lightning Storm catches Dashboard in the midst of it thanks to help with the Petrify. And the 1v1 between the junglers, Cope Baby is winning that fight for now. The tier 2 tower still stands. Sybil, so far, the only casualty until this tower goes down. No one on My Fault B wanting to fully committing to step up to defend.
Sybil did not get his ultimate off. Neither did he get either of his relics, so 0 value from Sylvanas in that fight, and that is the double-edged sword of not picking up beads up against a Fenrir on the other side. It doesn't matter what portion of the game we're in. Doesn't matter how much defense you've dedicated to yourself. A level 16 support cannot survive the full brunt of 5 members of SOPS Times staring them down. Tier 2 tower will eventually fall, and SOPS Times resets themselves. It's time to start dancing around the more important objective, Fire Giant. This should be a true 5-on-5. I'm not expecting My Fault P to let this one go without a fight, but it's going to be a much different looking fight than the last one we saw, where it was My Fault B with a 2,000 gold lead. Well, now it's SOPS time with 5.
And thanks to the help of that Relic Dagger, Mando Warrior going to get those relics up just a little bit quicker. Now only 20 seconds left on his corrupted Blink 70 on those beads. Compared to the other side on over here, Cope Baby still has 100 seconds till his are up. But that was the only relic used on the side of My Fault B during that engagement. So like you said, Sybil didn't pop either of his, so yes, doesn't get a whole lot of value, but now does have both of those up for this next fight, where Dashboard Shell still on cooldown for another 40 seconds. There'll be a Pyromancer started up, no contest here out of My Fault B, not willing to risk it for such a small objective.
Enhanced Fire Giant pulled out, My Fault B hovering nearby, but it's Mando Warrior trying to keep those gates closed. He gets out of the way, and well, My Fault B starts to work their way forward.
Chronic gets plucked and has to use the beads to get away. Mando on the wrong side of the jungle will eat some damage by Cope and Chronic. They're not going to do a whole lot to this tier just yet. Still fairly tanky on this god. Pulled in by Sybil. Up against Dashboard. We'll put some poke on the Khepri. But Mando is concerned about making sure that this wave can get up to that Phoenix. But now that Cope Baby is all the way by the Phoenix, it's a 4v5 as soon as this tier rotates back in. And this Enhanced Fire Giant is melting down to a 3rd health. And Chronic picked up because he doesn't have the beads. That means he's going to go down. Lightning Storm dropped on top of a lot of 4-man knockup by the Sylvanas. Sets up for some good damage out of Neu. He'll pick up one. Mando Warrior trying to keep this Zeus out, trying to take out Cope Baby, but he throws the boulder the wrong way. And Shinfu, the hero of the day, picks up 3 kills in the fight. And all 5 now down on the side of My Fault B. SOPS Time can march up the mid lane and end game 2.
Look, My Fault B probably feels pretty bad about the pace of this game, but I think if anyone should be shaking their boots right now, it's Big Yuji, the dedicated ADC for this SOPS Time squad, because Chinfu has been putting on a clinic all day today. And JMac, it is my absolute pleasure to go into a Game 3 with you, man. The first one of the week.
The first and only Game 3 that we've seen in this winner's bracket side of this tournament. And what better way with 2 teams that have had players in the scene for such a long time, such tight competition between them. But man, that game was so even for what, 15 or so minutes of play, and then we finally see My Fault B kind of break it open, and then one bad fight. Just one fight is all it takes for SOPS Time to turn that around. It was like a 6,000 gold swing, and just one poor little take around that Fire Giant.
So there's a concept called set play, JMac, and that's when teams kind of get to figure out what the other squad's doing, kind of make adaptations going forward. Game 1 was a stomp. Game 2, much more competitive. This could be a Game 3 in which we see My Fault B has finished their download, or SOPS Time has done it similarly. We could see another tight back and forth game. I'm not expecting a blowout, though. I think this next one is going to be a very long match of chess, essentially, where both of these squads on the edge of starting to get closer and closer to their SCC qualification aren't willing to leave it up to these risky plays, like what we saw in Game 2. One bad team fight, caution the game. I don't think these teams are going to be able to are willing to risk it like that anymore.
Well, let's see which of these 2 teams is going to be the one to call checkmate at the end of this set. We'll take it to a break, and we'll come back for our first Game 3 of the weekend.
You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and a giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and a giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. I've been on the flex since flex zone. Neighborhood all in your eardrums. I ain't never scared like Bone Crush. Boy, I got God, don't fear none. My line busy, take no calls. Feels like I don't have no flaws. Snakes in the grass, cut those off. Yo, squad shitty, my bros raw. No breaks, we go, 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 go. Throw shit shade, that's a no. Go high, go low. Like spinning in a 644. Cash money like 504. Ball like AD24. No sleep, need more. Pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up. Ooh, I'm a real one, my day ones. Try to speak up, can't say none. Try dig dirt, there ain't none. I make the money that save up. 10, 80, my save ons. Take to the top from the baseline. New car, race on. Fast lane, pace on. With the booyah, that's a flex. Not human, I ain't from another planet. I'ma teleport my vanish. I'ma wake up, do damage. Drawing number 7, he's bored though. Working all night, need more though. I remember nights I was poor though. Pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up.
You know, Mifflin, you were calling it in Game 1 that Chinfu was going to be the hero to try and bring his team victory, but wasn't quite enough in Game number 1. Game 2, though, Chinfu and the rest of SOPS time able to find a big dub here over My Fault B and send us into our first Game 3, our only Game 3 of at least this portion of the weekend. Once again, my name is J-Mac, with me Mifflin, to talk about, I think we should rename it Chinfu time here, because this man really put the team on his back. A top in the charts, like 21k damage?
Dude, you are so biased.
What?
You are so biased, man.
Hold on. You of all people are going to call me biased.
I did.
Unreal. Absolutely unreal. Talk to me about the rest of SOPS time then, everybody else around Chinfu.
Why would I? Chinfu is the hero. It's like you're not. Did you even watch the game?
I did watch the game, Mifflin. You watched it here with me, and we're sitting here singing the praises of Chinfu in game number 2.
Oh my god, again with Chinfu, this guy.
We have a whole nother game to go here, Mifflin. This is how we're going to start out. Before we talk about Chinfu, I also want to bring up Mando Warrior here. Really coming in strong on this tier. Tons of big Blink Fearless plays in the mid-game, setting up a lot for his team here, especially really picking off Sybil, punishing him for not going this beads route.
Yeah, I would argue that this game, of course, Chinfu does have a phenomenal performance, but I would argue it was majority frontline diff this time around. It just felt like dashboards, ultimates were always working. I don't think he dropped a single cooldown and didn't get a single revive. Mando Warrior was creating infinite space. Even in that very last skirmish around the Fire Giant, Mando Warrior drags Coat Baby away, circles back, finds the Fearless to set up the rest of his team, and then is a clean fight afterward. It's just that the tanks weren't surviving for My Fault B, and they simply were for SOPS time. And when one team's just got more members, if one squad is just outnumbered, well, that's a pretty significant advantage.
Yep. I looked at, oh my god, that was a 1,000 crit.
Well,
now, by this point,
man, what do you think?
By this point, he is also full build. I think he has full 6 items on there. And I saw like 700 plus crits hitting the Herc. I'm like, man, that's a Hercules he's hitting. And then I remembered it was a jungle Hercules who doesn't have like any protections built up here. Chinfu shredding through the competition, but I think bringing up the front line is probably the big talking point here. I mean, Sybil, in one team fight, Sybil got 0 value from pretty much his entire kit. Didn't fire off an ultimate, didn't get that entangling wings out, didn't get his berserker pop, and he just got CC chained until he literally could not be CC'd anymore.
And then he did it again, and then he did it again, and then he lost. It just was no beads on a front line. If you're playing against a tier or you're playing against a Fenrir, generally just the Fenrir is enough, is very, very hard to perform on. That's why when see in the SPL when Fenrir gets locked in, it's 5 beads across the board just about every single time. Maybe you get like a teleport out of Soul Lane if it's support Fenrir, because generally he's not going to be there, but just not enough respect put on the CC that SOPS time was bringing.
SOPS time, a strong performance here in game number 2. Can they repeat that in game 3 is going to be the question, and maybe an adaptation here out of My Fault B. I mean, in game number 1, the second round of bans is where we saw the Khepri. This time Khepri gets picked up top 3 on the side of SOPS time. Well, maybe here in picks and bans for game 3, we'll see if that Khepri even gets to make it into the second round, or into the first round of picks, I should say. Picks and bans starting up here. It will be My Fault B taking the first pick this time around.
Yeah, I'm expecting maybe you see. Oh wow, okay?
Just like that, okay.
Like, I mean, like Khepri was good.
Will into existence.
But like also, the first 3 or 4 Scarab's blessings that he used could have just been avoided. They like CC'd a guy, they kept him there, nobody was peeling for him, and then somebody was like, no, I want the kill, and just shoots it a little bit too early and sets off that ultimate. I think that if anything, I would have been targeting like the Fenrir. I'd be keeping my eyes on that front line, maybe even a tier ban as well, because we know that Mando Warrior has got a very historied career on that pick, but My Fault B, they're more concerned. They say, yo, dashboard, kind of nice with it.
Yeah, but I mean, going back to what you were saying earlier, it's how many times did he pop Scarab's Blessing and the person actually physically died after popping it?
Like not
None.
once, yeah, no,
None.
Yeah, it didn't work.
And every single one of them was complete value, whether it was a proc that kept them alive or whether it was just that threat alone kept them alive here. So, My Fault B really going to put the respect on Dashboard's Khepri. They'll ban it, the Ardio, and Gilgamesh away. Meanwhile, it will be Fenrir on SOPS time being banned away. They do not want to give that to My Fault B, along with the Kraken and the Amaterasu. But instead of the Doge, now they get the cat out here. Bastet picked up for SOPS time against the Izanami for My Fault B.
Yeah, so here's the thing about how Bastet has seen a lot of changes to her ultimate throughout time. Let me take you through a trip through history, all right? Back in the day, back when I started playing this game, she just summoned 3 cats. It was kind of lame. It was bad. It wasn't that good. It was kind of cool. It was kind of pub stompy, but it didn't really do all that much. So we changed it. Now Bastette's got a stim ultimate. Now all of her abilities are one-shotting you. Her leap does like 2,000 damage for some reason. People didn't super love that. It wasn't really interactive, so they changed it again, and they gave her better Fenrir ult. Here's what it is. She's gonna grab you, the massive quadrupedal furry animal, pick you up in the mouth, and drag you to her team or wherever she is at the time, without dedicating herself. At least when Fenrir does it, he has to walk up and you can hit him. There's no counterplay once you've been picked up by Bastet ultimate, besides beadsing it or cleansing it somehow, because you can't kill that cat, and you just gotta watch. You can't hit it either. It's not as if that hurts Bastet. So I think, in kind of like disrespecting the Fenrir, you forced Bastet. You forced the hand of Bastet. That's just an upgrade.
I mean, they've taken the Capri away. The Fenrir is gone. Maybe most important, they take a god away from Chinfu here. The Izanami doesn't go to the way of the hero this time around. Instead, it will be an Izanami, a Nemesis, and a Bellona locked in on the side of My Fault B. Bastet, as you so lovingly highlighted the strengths of this god, the ranged Ragnarok of an ultimate in her kit. Then you throw a Medusa and a Fafnir. And now looking at a Baba Yaga. We'll talk about that if it actually does get locked in. But the bands Zeus and Ganesh, and then Serket and Tyr, taking away a lot of the strong assassins that could do that multi-role flex, and taking away a big pick out of Mando Warrior. But it will be Baba Yaga locked in. When we took the boots out of the game, Baba Yaga for like, what was it, like 3 weeks? Everybody's like, yo, Baba Yaga kind of nice because we can stack right away. And then she just kind of disappeared.
Yeah, double flat pen became the meta, right? You don't really... And, you know, Baba Yaga was also, like, kind of always a specialist pick, right? There's only a couple people out there that are really playing it consistently. I think she's strong. I think she's really good. Her ultimate is very annoying to deal with, but it's kind of easy with the new meta selections in mid lane to damage her to a point, Baba Yaga that is, where she can't commit to the home sweet home, where she doesn't want to be walking you down aggressively. And when I talk about the new age of mid laners, it's the Agnis, the Thos of the world, the guys who are just like, yeah, I might not just straight up kill you unless I'm like 5 levels up and we see like clothesline Thoth ultimates, but I'll do enough damage to you from a range that you probably can't return damage from, that you're not going to be willing to commit. And I think Agni fits that style incredibly well. One bomb stun into another bomb, you're taking out at least half of Baba Yaga's HP, assuming she isn't going for that Warlock staff start. Are you really going to be using all of your abilities aggressively? First ability, kind of close range for Baba Yaga. Second ability as well, similarly, doesn't have the most range on it. And then the ultimate, you're walking in aggressively. Pretty hard to do when you're half HP.
And you can match up not only against the Agni, it will be an Athena on the side of My Fault B, and then a Nike for the final selection out of SOPS time as we jump into game number 3. Our first game 3 of the weekend, our last game of the day and the weekend here. Jumping right in, J-Mac, Mifflin, and Doug in this coveted third game here. My Fault B going a very traditional draft. I think the Athena probably kind of the one major outlier out here, but we've seen success out of the Athena for the few times that she has been picked up, not just during the SPL qualifiers, but even here this weekend in the SEC qualifiers.
I am a massive fan of Athena, right? And I know Agro's no longer on the casting team, but I will throw him under the bus. He's a big dummy, and he doesn't think Athena's all that good. There's no way Dash Taunt isn't just going to be a nasty initiation regardless of a meta, man. It's just a consistent way to apply AoE CC. You're incredibly tanky because you get block stacks from your passive, and it's kind of an auto attack meta in that there's a lot of crit on the board right now, a lot of great penetration options for some of these hunters. So just having the ability to block stack and then maybe pick up a Nemean and block stack some more on top of that feels incredibly strong. And then we're circling around the elephant in the room. I'm not talking about Ganesh. I'm talking about a global ultimate. The Defender of Olympus giving whoever you hit with it damage mitigation as well as a large burst of damage around them once you do land is incredibly potent.
Well, we do see a 2-1-2 start here outside of My Fault B, putting the jungler and the support, or the solo laner I should say, over together on the right side to clear out speed and blue together. Meanwhile, mid lane is going to be able to grab that one. Double taunt by Sybil just to start things off. No beads burn. Don't need to just yet as there wasn't any major follow-up back. But Neu being left alone here in this mid lane on this Agni, meaning he's going to have to get as much free farm as possible. But I think the one thing that caught my eye right away that I'm just going to have to go back to, the Bastet solo, we've been seeing it a lot. Haven't seen a lot of Nike jungle recently.
No, we have not. And back when we did, it was a lot of Mannequin's Hidden Blade Tactical Nuke Nike Jungle, where you would blink in, drop your ultimate, drop somebody down to half HP, and then pray that the additional HP bar was enough to keep you alive long enough, having not gone for any defense in the kit. Instead, it's Eye of the Jungle into the Mace Tree for Jinku Bang, likely going to become a protector of the jungle once he ticks over to level 20.
Taunton against Chinfu. No beads burned just yet. Sybil doing everything that they can to try and force this relic out, but of course they will not, at least for the time being. Not enough damage in. Mid lane will be cleared out and ahead of time by SOPS time. My fault B. We'll be able to clear this one out, no problem. Also, maybe a little curious. Well, maybe I'll hold that thought there. Barrier off the mark. Nate does get knocked up. Self inside to slow.
Yikes.
And the potion tossed in by SOPS will strike first blood for the side of SOPS time.
Yeah, Nehu just losing a little bit of focus there. Dashes in aggressively to clear the wave. That is not a great call to make when there's a blink jungler on the other side. Jinku Bang may not have connected the shield wall, but did not need to. The knockup plus damage follow-up from Baba Yaga was just enough, and now SOPS going to be playing with a pretty significant lead early on, already going towards some survivability thanks to that helmet as well. Cope should be able to strip that defense just by nature of being Nemesis, but that's not exactly what you want to see. This could shift up SOPS' build as well. We might see him decide, now that he's already got that first blood bounty for himself, that snacking feels pretty good.
So far, it is just the helmet start out of SOPS time in the mid lane. Meanwhile, is a pen start by Nehu. He'll at least have tier 2 in that spear, so that way he can get either his Desolation or his Divine Rune, whichever one he decides to opt for here in that first slot. More common, the Spear of Desolation, just because there's not really a whole lot of healing out here on the side of SOPS time. SOPS does get a little bit with this passive, but not really anything that's going to concern all too much early on.
Well, you're not worried about the dashboard heal from Coerce, man?
The what, like 50 heal that he gets from it?
Okay, you could have just said no. You don't have to yell at me.
I mean, sure, if you're building the extra power, I'd definitely worry, but I'm going to be honest, at this stage of the game, no, I'm not too concerned about Coerce heal.
Yeah, me either, so I agree. Spear of Desolation probably going to be the pickup for Nehu. That additional CDR going to go a long way to help him out with poking out SOPS in some of these fights, and that's really where Agni and Thoth kind of find their shine, the ability to apply damage and open up the door for Cope, for Sybil, to make these rotations be impactful. It never feels good as a ganker, as a jungler, to walk into a lane that has a full HP target.
Also never feels good as a Bastet to miss that ultimate. Mando just a little off the mark up
You hate
against
this
Chronic.
guy.
Well, he just missed the ultimate. I was just bringing up the fact that he missed the ultimate out here.
You're right.
Against the point-blank target.
Dude, you have been yelling at me all day. I just
know
want
what?
to cast a game.
You know what? I'm sorry, Mifflin.
Okay.
I'm sorry that I've been yelling a little too much.
All right, thank you.
Let's jump right back into game, though. 4 minutes in, Obelisk's about to come back up, and pressure on this left side of the map in favor of My Fault B. Sybil hasn't quite left just yet, and has been sticking with his Benevolence here in Game 3 for a starter item. Kind of been seeing a little bit of back and forth. Still more often have we been seeing kind of the Sentinel's Gift as that starter support item.
Yeah, Sentinels is just so good for sustain, and I haven't exactly read the entire spreadsheet that Flare Boot put out on whether or not Benevolence, like when it hits its power strides. Speaking of power strides, it's going to be SOPS up into the ultimate, and, well, Cope, you're stuck.
Cope's got nowhere to go. One more shot from the home sweet home will take him down. Nehu even has to be careful because he ate quite a bit of poke from the fire raining down. Another kill up and another one on the side of SOPS this time around. 2-0 for the mid laner. And maybe even a red buff invade. Doesn't seem that Sybil or Nehu want to contest.
No, none whatsoever. SOPS time off to a phenomenal start in the center of the map, and this is not what you want to see from a Baba Yaga. Generally, this pick is a little bit slow to get off the ground, but simply not the case here as Diesel takes a lot of damage. There's a lot of red team members, SOPS time, hovering the left side of the map, but nobody willing to go for the dive there. I thought maybe we'd see Diesel get dove under tower, considering Dashboard was so close by, still had the Dragon transformation up as well, but maybe just that defensive relic, the beads, still there for Izanami is enough to dissuade him.
Talk about flipping the script here, though. I mean, Diesel had been playing the Medusa the first 2 games, Chinfu on the Izanami. Now here in Game 3, we see that swapped around, and it's Chinfu who's getting aggressive on this Medusa early on. But is Diesel the first one to pick up that Crusher? He's able to make his way back to base, and it seems that Chinfu can now pick theirs up, as they have finally gotten their first chance to go back to base as well.
Yeah, this time Chinfu doesn't pick up the mace either, so doesn't have to sacrifice any of his gold. That's a pretty big win over Game 2. And speaking of pretty big wins, it seems like Cope Baby's going to be able to pick up the Greater Scorpion without anybody working his way over. As of now, the game at the game state just about dead even. The only differentiations is a little bit of XP in mid and soul lane. Mando Warrior and SOPS both sitting about 1 level up.
Well, it'll be a quick Scorpion as Mando Warrior rotates over towards this mid side of the map to make sure they get in those enhanced buffs. Meanwhile, Nehu will put some big damage on the mid laner there. Bomb stun. Sets up for some good poke up against SOPS, but SOPS isn't too concerned about it just now. Does have that Celestial Legion helm, or that Celestial Legion, yep, online, and a Spear of Desolation. But Dashboard has to go up into that dragon form. Unfortunately, Nehu has nowhere to go. That Athena ultimate giving him a little bit of protection, but it's not going to be enough. Jingu Bang strikes up for another kill on the side of SOPS. Time Sybil thrown into the skies, and SOPS will pick up an early killing spree.
Man, Dashboard just owned these guys. He jumps out the damage, finds the stun on the tail end, gets the dragon transformation dot proc to apply to Nehu, chases the dash away from Agni, finds another stun. Nehu wasn't allowed to play that engagement. Big mistake. Don't taunt Dashboard. It simply does not work. That was nasty.
Quickly, Diesel has to get out of there. Hammer on the way by Dashboard, but just off the mark this time. And a blue buff invade, at least in a blue buff attempt to steal. It will be successful. My Fault B does strip that buff away from Mando Warrior. Try and slow the cat down just a little bit. And they're going to need to. Mando Warrior up level 9 to 8 over Chronic.
Man, SOPS time. I think with the draft that they've got right now, well, not right now because Fafnir's ultimate is down, but I would expect to see SOPS time start to group up around this Gold Fury very shortly. Coerce is a great tool to shutting down some of these objectives. SOPS playing with a lead can use Home Sweet Home just to constantly apply damage, very similarly to how Anubis ult works, but a little bit slower because Anubis ult smacks. I really think the objective shred of SOPS time is enough that if they're given like 5-6 seconds alone with a Gold Fury or Pyromancer, Gold Fury or Pyromancer will just immediately die. That said, My Fault B has got good ability to rotate in, so if they are privy to it, Sybil can close gap pretty quickly as long as one member of his team is nearby. Cope can chase down some of these targets as well. But playing with the lead that SOPS time have, I think it is worth the risk to start looking towards some of these early objectives.
Well, stun on a Cope as he walks through the jungle. Oracle Harpies
That's a
will
lot
go
of
the way
damage.
of SOPS time. And you can see just with only one item what this Baba Yaga is able to put out early on. That first ability is no joke in the damage output. Diesel doesn't get away from those 3 hits out of Jingu Bang. That'll slam him down and effectively nullify as far as what that stealth was concerned. But at least for Diesel, he does get to get back to safety. Does have his tier 2 balance blade online, so he's got that extra attack speed. His mid lane has kind of been left alone for a little while outside that initial fight. The Mando Warrior loses the ultimate, loses the beads, and will probably lose his life here as it's a rotation in with Sybil, and Cope will be the one to strike him down.
Surely SOPS time just goes to Gold Fury here. 3-man grouping on the red buff, and we know the global ultimate's down. We know 3 members are still from My Fault B on the right side of the map, so Gold Fury will be pulled out. It's up to Diesel to steal this one away. Maybe Nehu can close gap, but that's dangerous.
Nehu's coming in from the top side of the fight, trying to
Super
pincer
dangerous.
around them. Diesel on the bottom end will be spotted by Jingu Bang. Ultimate comes out by the Nike. SOPS time do manage to get the Gold Fury. Now Nehu is the one who has to be careful as he's surrounded by 3. He gets away. Chronic will chase in on this Balloon, but the Home Sweet Home is down from SOPS. He's going to use that extra movement speed from that first ability to go through. Big damage on a Jingu Bang in the back, though. SOPS time, they get the objective, they get out with their lives, and they don't really expend a whole lot to do so.
So you trade out Mando Warrior's life for the Gold Fury. Nehu may pay the price as well. Mando Warrior back from base on the respawn. Has rejoined the engagement. Did My Fault B chase too far?
Sybil caught out and taken down. Chinfu strikes again now for SOPS time. First kill for him on the board, but 5th one for the team. And Cope Baby is all the way on the other side of the map, was pushing out that tier 1 tower. And we'll get that away to strip some safety once again from Mando Warrior. But SOPS time already with an early lead, 1,500 gold and XP to their name.
Might as well start to work your way over towards the Pyromancer now. Just spawned up for the first time this game. My Fault B has been a little bit slow on the uptake towards these neutral objectives, and SOPS time has still got pretty strong burn for it. With the relics already burnt, though, Mando Warrior no longer has beads. You've already used the Horrific from Dashboard. We might see them try and stagnate this game for the next couple of minutes, which is fine. Desyncing those neutral objectives, though, is going to be very valuable. So the sooner either one of these teams can take out Pyromancer, it removes the opportunity for the other team to just kind of take these in trade, right? And one team goes gold, the other goes Pyro. That is taken off the table unless both remain standing for a long time. But considering the presence we're already seeing from SOPS time on the right-hand side. I'm expecting this to get pulled out.
Two grouped up. It'll be Dashboard and Mando Warrior. The Assassin, who's still building all that damage in the solo lane, will have decent bit to start up, but they're not willing to commit to it just yet.
Huh.
Not sure if there was something that they spotted on a ward that may have made them kind of call that off there, but that seemed like that could have just been an easy objective for them to take.
Yeah, they'd already used all of their bursts, both Mando Warrior and Dashboard, and only dropped Pyromancer down to 50%, so maybe just not in love with the amount of DPS that they had seen there, and not having vision on Chronic on that Totem Aku, maybe dissuading them as well, worried that he was going to work his way in.
Shinfu caught out by Cope, dashes the wrong way. Petrify isn't going to stun anything out. It's going to be Diesel picking up the kill with some help from Sybil. Now Chronic on the run has to use that Eagles Rally to get away from Mando Warrior. Ult for ult trade from the supports. And Sybil will do something we haven't gotten to see a whole lot of so far this weekend, which is stealing away some of those offerings for that Obelisk. But that does set up time for SOPS time to finally go ahead and just take this Pyro.
Yeah, that is twice now that My Fault B has dedicated 3 members to diving an isolated guy on the side of the map that does not have a neutral objective. Before 10 minutes, we saw the 3-man dive in solo lane. What does SOPS do? They go to Gold Fury. Gold Fury is dead. What does My Fault B do? 3-man group left side of the map. What's the response from SOPS time? Hey, maybe we just go to the side that has the objective. Pyromancer falls down, and I'm no mathematician. I'm not great at it. But I don't think Chinfu is worth a Pyro.
Don't think so.
Maybe Chinfu twice?
Maybe Chinfu twice. He'll have the Aegis this time around to stay alive.
Ooh.
Jump in now. Now it's a 3v2. The advantage is in favor of SOPS time. They pick up the first kill of the fight. It's on to Sybil, and Jingu Bang takes down Cope Baby. There's no objective on this left side for them to take. For now, it'll just be 2 kills for SOPS time.
3-man grouping from SOPS time. Could be we see a tier 1 tower siege here if they want to start to slowly work their way forward. Jingu Bang still hovering this side of the map, trying to see if he can spot out anyone from My Fault B rotating in for the defense. As of now, Nehu decides to take incredibly defensive pathing, so will not be there. Instead, SOPS side going to go ahead and take away that red buff. It's going to allow Chinfu to stay in that lane, doesn't have to split his farm at all, and you're still about a minute away from this Gold Fury respawning, stripping that jungle, making sure that Nehu is that much weaker, not having the red buff. Going to make this next objective a lot easier.
They're just going to stick over to this left side. Dashboard and Jingu Bang hovering in the jungle, but now they've seen Diesel. They're not going to commit to that tier 1 tower. When was the last time that Nehu even got to pick up a red buff this game? It felt like every time that we have seen SOPS time not in a lane, it has just been at My Fault B's red buff.
7 minute, 45 seconds.
That was the last time that we saw him.
I don't know.
Oh, you sounded pretty confident there, so I was willing to believe you there for a moment.
Yeah.
Now I'm a little bit less hesitant in believing that statement.
Yeah, well, I made up that number is the thing. It's been a little while. The last 2 red buffs were stolen by SOPS time. They've been having a pretty good firm control over that timer. Primal Fury, though, seems to be in control vision-wise by My Fault B. They've got the ward dominance there. So, neither team going to have significant advantage moving in, but take a peek at the wards that SOPS time have dropped. It's deep wards on My Fault B's side of the map, meaning that as long as SOPS time can establish defensive positioning around the Primal, it is going to be that much harder for My Fault B to start to work their way forward, which is why Cope is trying to set up a gank, trying to find something that can turn this fight in favor of My Fault B before it actually unravels around the objective itself.
There'll be a purple buff drop on the side of My Fault B. A couple of big items have come online for these mages. Double flat pen up for Nehu. SOPS has just now finished up that Void Stone with their last back. It's going to be a little bit of extra defenses online for this mid laner. You see some of the poke throwing towards Sybil. He'll taunt in Dashboard. But as we saw earlier, maybe not the one that you want. It's a quick horrific in the back line and a transformation out of the support. And Sybil is already gone. Doesn't even get the chance to play out this fight.
Goodness.
And maybe neither does Chronic. A big stun at a Dashboard. But Dashboard himself has taken a lot of damage. Both supports either taken out or at least TKO'd for now.
Man, Dashboard is just owning these engagements, man. Again, as you said, My Fault B overcommitting to trying to shut down the support. That is a fully stacked Thieves, Stone of Binding Fafnir. It's going to be very difficult to kill that guy unless you're dropping Nemesis ult on him. If that's the case, sure, you can kill just about anyone. But I'm looking at Nemesis ult, and it's still up. Probably not going to be able to shut down the dragon. And what happens immediately after the taunt? Dashboard says, oh, word, I'm going to be a dragon, and I'm going to jump at you aggressively. Finds the double stun, setting up for his team. It isolates the entirety of the team fight, kind of splitting it up into 2 targets. One left alone in the back line, gets shut down, and SOPS time takes themselves a clean win.
And some of the most value that we've seen out of the horrific emblem thus far. I mean, found 3 people with it in the fight. And he went for this item last time around. This relic was picked up a second time now by SOPS Time's support's dashboard. And we'll see if that's going to force out yet another Heavenly Wings out of Sybil. It felt like it did kind of get forced last time. You don't have the way to get rid of slow. It just becomes a problem. Speaking of becoming a problem, Cope Baby has become a major thorn in Chinfu's side. I say that, but Cope is the one who gets turned right back on. Sybil wants to find a path out. Big stun out of Nehu is just enough to keep the support alive, but that was awfully close for Sybil.
That was an expensive engagement. Athena ultimate down, every single bomb, and Cope's ultimate. So, SOPS Time have got free reign of the objective. Primal Fury going to be pulled out. And My Fault B, they've got beef with Chinfu, man. And it hasn't worked out. The last couple of gank attempts have just gone unrewarded.
Will be Gold Fury, Primal Fury this time around for SOPS Time. Great zoning out of Chingu Bang means that Nehu cannot walk up, even despite the fact that he has the bombs. You can see it now reflecting in the charts a little bit more. 2,600 gold, 3,700 experience that SOPS Time has up. It's a small lead, to say the least, but it's a steady lead that they've been building themselves this game.
Very slowly, just whittling away at these neutral objectives, kind of working their way, building that chart up. And 17 minutes in, gold differential, not really massive. 3K split 5 ways, not a whole lot, but experience, I think, is going to start meaning more and more going forward, specifically around titular SOPS himself. 2 levels up on the mid laner.
Mando Warrior under fire, whips the ultimate up against Cope Baby, but a good root will make sure that the Nemesis cannot continue the chase. And with dashboard here, that should spell the end of the engagement out of My Fault B. They're starting to group up now. This Pyromancer is up. My Fault B could go for it here. SOPS will get taunted back in. Big stun into the mid lane. Will get the Aegis out of SOPS. Both bombs will not get the damage out there. And Jingu Bang will sidestep the third one. Now all 3 down for Nehu.
That was a pretty good engagement from My Fault B. Trading out 3 bombs for an Aegis is going to be value every single time. So now SOPS a little bit more susceptible to the gank. Luckily for SOPS, holds on to those beads. So CC immunity there and ready, available to dodge out on that next engagement.
Well, 1 stun into another bomb. You can see the damage coming up for this Agni. Won't lead into any kind of kills here, but with that Aegis down, that is a prime target if this My Fault B wants to go through. Beads are still up, though, which means that SOPS does have some safety in case Sybil thinks they can get a nice dash taunt off.
Neither team feeling confident enough to look towards the Pyromancer just yet. Maybe once SOPS Time is able to regroup, start to rally around dashboard, those relics now up as well. Could be an opportunity to start stepping forward, but it seems like it's going to be dependent on which one of these teams' ADCs is willing to rotate out first, and neither one is very willing to leave this lane. That's kind of the common Hunter syndrome. I'm going to stay here until I'm level 20, then I'll leave. Neither one's really all that close right now.
No, only 3 items in and a tier 1 for Diesel towards that Silver Branch bow. So it'll be some time before their builds come online. I just realized that Diesel's gone for a Gilded Arrow instead of a Death's Toll on the Izanami.
You know, I've just seen that as well, and I wish I hadn't. That's a lot of sustain lost out, but I guess kill pressure is a little bit better. You've got some decent upgrade paths as well. Pyromancer pulled out. My Fault B. They sneaked this one away.
They got the opening that they needed. You can see the damage from Nehu shining through here. Charon's coin now picked up by the mid lane mage. And a nice little damage spike towards them. Chinfu level 18 on this Medusa does have the Death's Toll, so it will be a Gilded Arrow versus Death's Toll. Maybe looking to get some extra crit chance with this Gilded Arrow on the side of Diesel. Not sure where he's going to finish out this build.
Yeah, maybe like a Diamond Arrow. It's not something we get to see a whole lot from these hunters, man. I mean, the upgrades of Death's Toll are just so incredibly strong. You got Death's Embrace, which is going to give you so much healing, which SOPS would have loved to have had because he got immediately eviscerated. Had beads, could have avoided the Confound, simply chose not to.
Maybe recognizing the rotation coming through him, and you can see wards peppering this right side of the map, but that's My Fault B's actually, so SOPS probably wouldn't have even seen that. Surrounded by 3, I mean, still probably not the best call to hold on to them throughout that engagement, but now he's going to have to wait till the next fight if that one can even come for SOPS here. Fire Giant started up by My Fault B, burst damage up on the dashboard. He'll jump away, but Mando gets a kill up on Cope Baby. Throw that. Massive Petrify, though, coming out of Chinfu. Puts Diesel at critical health, and Jingu Bang is going to chase this one out. Rend, not quite enough damage. Beads have to be used by Jingu Bang, but Diesel stays alive between the lifesteal of Aussie and the help. But he's going to need a little bit more. Dashboard jumps on in and finally gets the pick on the carry, making it a 2-for-2 trade to start this engagement out. Dashboard needs that hammer if they want to get a kill up against Civil, but I think Civil might just be out.
If Dashboard can find a leap over wall, connects the leap damage, needs the hammer, no good. So Sybil will survive this engagement. Yet again, SOPS time get picked out. SOPS falls down before the team fight, and then MyFaultB can't seem to agree on where they want to center their aggression. Cope tries to work his way forward around the side, gets isolated by Mando Warrior, who blows him up. By the way, this Bastet's damage is massive. Transcendence fully stacked. Brawler's Beat Stick finished. Heartseeker as well has been finished up. So Cope not really allowed to take that 1v1 too often in these team fights. Doesn't even use his beads in that engagement. And then immediately afterward, yet again, MyFaultB dedicates a ton of their damage into this Fafnir. This time around, Dark Portal was used as well, so there was some follow-up on a Dashboard, but who cares, man? That's the support. You use 3 ultimates, essentially, trying to shut him down, and I don't know, he's still alive.
Still kicking. 107 on the Fafnir, a Witchblade, and working towards a Kusari. Notably also, the only real tank on this team. I mean, with Mando going full damage, Jingu Bang going for this kind of hybrid style of build, Dashboard's going to be the only one who can really soak up a lot of that damage. Jingu Bang, a little bit at least with the help of that ultimate.
Yeah, that secondary HP bar going to feel pretty nice going forward. Oni Fury pulled out by SOPS time, and it's burning relatively quickly.
Sybil gets rooted by the cat, still has the dash up if Sybil wants to go towards this one.
The suspense.
But man, we're going to be left on a cliffhanger here as a quick pause in the action comes through here in game number 3. A very close match so far. SOPS time, though, finding the better into these fights. And again, it was just like game 2 where Sybil got picked off in a fight, and then MyFaultB started rallying around an objective, and then they lost the team fight right after. Similar here. SOPS dies in a mid lane skirmish, 1v4. MyFaultB, like you were saying, just cannot figure out what they want to do and end up losing a fight right afterwards to keep SOPS time completely relevant, even despite losing a player.
But SOPS time has got a massive kill advantage at this point. 10 to the 4 of MyFaultB, but the gold advantage, the experience advantage has remained relatively even throughout the majority of this game. 3,000 gold, 23 minutes in, not crazy experience. Everyone's starting to kind of get around the same level. Maybe still 2 levels in mid favoring SOPS, but you only hit level 21, so you can only expand that lead so much from here on out. Even 2 levels in support doesn't really matter a whole lot at this point because they both got similar levels of defense in the build thanks to the gold distribution of these 2 teams. So MyFaultB, although not winning out on a lot of these team fights, have done a great job of kind of stemming that bleeding, slowing down the game, and opening up the doors to give themselves the opportunity to group up as 5 and defend this Fire Giant.
You were calling this is going to be a tight game 3, and so far it has been just that. Neither team willing to fully give in just yet. MyFaultB do get their Scorpion as another group around the Fire Giant, though. For the time being, SOPS time does have the vision advantage. They'll D-ward in the pit, and then they'll start it right up. Nobody has come up to stop them just yet. Sybil is the closest one in, and so is Chronic, can finally rotate through. But his Fire Giant's down to a quarter health. It is close. Chronic goes to try and stop Shinfu from going through. SOPS time gets the Fire Giant, and maybe even the kill right after as Sybil comes in low into the midst of the fight. But everybody's still alive for the time being until finally Shinfu falls. Nayu finds Jingu Bang, and Sybil at a quarter health finds a taunt against Mando Warrior to keep them back. Nayu puts some good damage, but Mando can finally strike back in the fight, taking out Sybil before he inevitably goes down to the damage out of Nayu. But what a bloodbath out of the mid laners here. SOPS picks up his own triple kill, and it's now him versus Cope Baby. Cope uses the shield, gets a nice bit of healing, but it seems to be a disengage now between the teams.
Man, SOPS goes unlooked at throughout that entire engagement until the very end. Cope says, where are the other people? Who do I kill? Oh, SOPS is all that's left? Guess I'll look at him. And that is the first bit of damage that he took. SOPS free cast that entire time and picks himself up a triple kill. Fortunately for MyFaultB, having stripped away 4 of his teammates, it's only SOPS with the Fire Giant buff going forward. Maybe not the ideal target for MyFaultB to have left up with Fire Giant. The damage output has been pretty ridiculous at this point of the game already. But again, this is another game this set where one team goes for the wild Fire Giant play and then sticks their heels. They dig them in and say, we're fighting now. We could reset, we could leave, but I want to fight here and now. We got Fire Giant. should be an advantage. But when you use all of your abilities trying to secure that objective, you don't have them to use against those enemy gods. And that little window of time gave My Fault B just enough to strip away a 4-for-4 engagement.
4 for 4, and as you said, only SOPS
It's
left
a good deal
with that buff. And considering that My Fault B was down going into that fight, going even against a Fire Giant team that was 4,000 or 5,000 gold up is a huge win on their part. Sure, they haven't shored up that gold lead much more. It's still 5,000 that they're down, but essentially nullifying one of the best objectives that you can grab at this stage of the game has got to be a major confidence move for My Fault B.
SOPS time regroups around the Fire Giant, says, run it back, we're ready this time. Show up, try to defend this Pyromancer. My Fault B not going to fall for the bait here. Instead now, SOPS time, I think, still are in a position where they can at least try to siege these tier 2 towers, start to work their way all the way across the map, start on the right, go left, and then if you're still feeling confident, maybe you find a pick, start to look towards some of these Phoenixes.
Sybil charging up that dash, but not going to use it just yet. Only dashboard within range of being taunted in. Everybody on SOPS time very spread out, and when you're going against an Athena, you never want to be holding hands to get pulled in by that confound. So for the time being, SOPS time is taking their precious time to try and push down this tier 2. Not wanting to make a full commit in just yet, but it is a taunt against dashboard, Dark Portal after. But the Fafnir is out for the time being. Cope uses an ultimate up against Mando Warrior, gets a little bit more value in the damage. But now all of SOPS time, they're going to go on the retreat.
Dark Portal and 3 bombs from Nehu, all onto Dashboard, who survives that engagement, but maybe just enough to scare them away. SOPS time fully reset themselves. Even Cope had used his ultimate in the 1v1 up against Mando Warrior in the jungle, but that said, 4 ultimates still available to SOPS time. Every single relic up as well, but not willing to try and maintain that siege. I think with Dashboard having some sustain in the kit, Coerce should be maxed out at this point, should heal up pretty quickly. Mando Warrior as well, didn't really take a whole lot of damage in that fight. I would believe that SOPS time still were in a position where they could continue that siege. If anything, should feel a little bit more confident in their ability to take that fight after that trade, but instead, it's a complete reset back to base, and My Fault B, they have it.
Mando doesn't have the ultimate and now doesn't have his relics, as he has to burn both of those just to get away from Sybil and Cope. Primal Fury does have vision control of the Oracles in favor of My Fault B, so they'll pull the Primal Fury here. This one's going down very quickly. Dashboard's not going to have an opportunity to get in and stop that one down. So for now, My Fault B at least able to regroup a little bit quicker towards this left side of the map, take one objective, and they'll be able to take a tier 1 tower thanks to the help of some minions.
My Fault B are simply just playing with more confidence than SOPS time right now. They're willing to put damage into anyone who steps forward. Chronic dropped down to about 80% HP in exchange for 50% of Dashboard's HP bar. Tier 1 tower on the left side is taken away, and the team that is playing at a pretty large deficit at this portion of the game is also the team dictating the aggression, dictating the pace, dictating where these fights are happening. Again, SOPS time, I don't think need to let off the gas. They're still playing with a very nice lead. They still had Fire Giant on SOPS for just about 40 seconds while they were grouped up on that right side tier 2, but in resetting, allowed My Fault B to group up, strip away every single relic from Mando Warrior and a tower, and can reestablish that defensive positioning around the Fire Giant. The Order team, they're playing with fire right now.
And they're right back to the pit. Faster than SOPS time was able to regroup. All 5 on My Fault B ready to go. Meanwhile, Jinku Bang just lagging a little bit behind as Fire Giant spawns in. 1 bomb already expended by My Fault B. We are 29 minutes in the game, and Enhanced Fire Giant is just a minute more away until that one crashes down. And we've seen in the past just what one Enhanced Fire Giant can do. Essentially, can usually just be the end of the game. So with all 10 players grouping up, this could be the final fight of Game 3.
Dashboard is allowed to play with confidence here, knowing that even when every single ability is used on him off the back of a taunt, he's generally going to be able to survive it. So that's why we see him playing so far up, just kind of face-checking the Fire Giant, making sure that My Fault B aren't pulling it out, aren't stepping too far forward, aren't able to close gap onto his backline. But that said, we have not seen the full combo on Dashboard just yet. Imagine a Confound immediately followed up by a Nemesis ultimate, then the Dark Portal, then the triple bombs. I don't think Dashboard lives those. But Cope Baby's been playing so confidently and so consistently around the edge of these team fights, trying his best to take these 1v1s up against Mando Warrior or Jinku Bang, whoever it is he kind of locks eyes with first, that that combo just hasn't come through just yet.
That's the fire started up. EFG pulled by My Fault B. Dashboard eating a bomb out of Nehu.
Good God.
While My Fault B is eating the damage of the Fire Giant, specifically Sybil. Chronic gets rooted and stunned out. Has to use the beads to start this engagement out. And that's one relic down now on the side of My Fault B.
That is the first time My Fault B off a taunt on a dashboard has not committed damage. But I would argue probably the first time they should have. Fire Giant gets the knock up. He's kind of alone in that engagement. You got a lot of CC on the back of it. If Cope was in range, I think Dashboard would have just died. That said, My Fault B is still in a very good position here to pull out the enhanced fire.
And it's their best chance. Dashboard is nowhere to be found, but they don't seem to have that knowledge that Dashboard isn't in the area just yet. And with that time, with that opening that My Fault B had, it's immediately going to go to the wayside as all of SOPS time has regrouped one more time. The beads are still down for Chronic, though. Down for another 2 minutes. And Sybil is the one in danger. A blink in and ult by Jingu Bang. But all that shield is already gone. Dark Portal finds 2. Eagles Rowley finds 2. But it's Sybil, the first one down in the fight. Draconic Transformation helps to take out another. And we're already at 2 for 1 so far for SOPS time. But Dashboard jumps in aggressively, and it pays the price here. Jitfu able to get one. Mando picks up a double.
What?
And an instant deicide here for SOPS time. Could just spell the end of the game.
Sybil still has ultimate. That one's going to have to be saved for the next set that he plays. Nehu as well does not get all of his bombs off, but that fight starts off for My Fault B with Cope Baby removing SOPS. That guy did not get an opportunity to do anything in that engagement. Dashboard barely survives with a sliver of HP, and now it's SOPS time's time. They're just going to work their way forward.
4 people on the Phoenix, 10 seconds until Sybil is back up. But that's going to be a 10 long seconds that he's going to have to wait, and that Titan is not going to have that much time here. 32 minutes in, and SOPS time. After losing game 1, turning around game 2, do it dirty here in game number 3. A 2-1 win for SOPS time.
That is an impressive match, to be sure. A very high-stakes one where one mistake can really cost you the entirety of the set, drop you down to that loser's bracket. Neither one of them wanted to be put into that position, and SOPS time is the one that comes out on top. But thin knife margins, right? Like either one of these squads could be the one stepping up in the winner's bracket, moving on to the next phase. I'm expecting a lot more from both of these squads going forward.
Very much excited to see what happens with these two teams as the event goes on. But we are going to take it to a quick break, then we'll come back to break down game 3 and close out our day. We got our first and our only Game 3 set of the weekend, and what a set it was. SOPS time. At the end of the day, though, is the one who comes out on top with the 2-1 victory over My Fault B. And I think you're right to go on, especially during that last team fight, Mifflin, how low every single person was on that team at the end of it all, especially Dashboard. That man was a maniac. I had to say, less than 100 health, and he jumps back in against 3 people to set up for Chinfu and Mando Warrior to clean up the game.
Like, I called it at the 5-minute mark. I'll call it again at the 30. Dashboard was owning, man. That was a magnificent performance from the Fafnir, just consistently setting up for his team, surviving these kind of crazy scenarios, somehow just being a lightning rod for aggression the entire time. But the guy on your screen right now, SOPS, plays an unorthodox pick in Game 3 in Baba Yaga, gets first blood for his squad, and then picks up a triple kill in an integral late-game team fight, and continues to just put out tons and tons of damage for the entirety of that match. 19,000 put up by the mid laner.
Not just him, Mando Warrior also putting up some big damage, picking up a double kill in that very last team fight to help secure the kill. But, I mean, this is the one here. This entire team fight goes down. 6 people are dead, 7 at this point now, and SOPS has 100% health. That is the first time in that fight when 8 people are dead that somebody finally looks at this mid laner and does anything.
And they paid the price for it. Maybe had they killed him earlier, we'd be talking about a completely different game. But at the end of the day, this was a close set between these two teams where individual plays were the difference makers between a win or a loss. Small mechanical differences could have very well spelled a different tapestry, a different history for these SEC qualifiers, man. But SOPS time, very well deservedly, were able to step up, and with these high-stakes matches, with it being a Game 3 scenario, with it going the full 30-minute distance, keep their heads on their shoulders and make the right decisions.
I know we've been kind of joking about it throughout the set, but Big Yuji might have to worry because Chinfu has been a phenomenal sub to step in for this team. I mean, if this
you
is
are simping for this guy.
If this is the level that a sub is able to bring out here,
I
can only imagine what Big Yuji's got to be capable of if this is the sub coming out here. Great play across the board for this team, though. SOPS time able to continue moving on to the win. I am choosing to ignore the comment, by the way.
Yes, that's fine.
SOPS time comes up with a big win here. 23,000 damage out of this Bastet solo, 19K out of SOPS. Big playmakers for these two guys, and I think the fact that SOPS brings out these unorthodox styles of picks, I mean, the Hera last game and now the Baba Yaga this game, means that you have things to worry about with a team like this. I mean, when you can't ban out a specific player, it makes your draft a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, it's very similar to how the Oni Warriors operate, right? Like, are they going to play on her mid? They're the only team that does it. Or are they going to bust out that Hera? Is it an Aphrodite? It just really keeps these teams guessing, and it really opens the door for the styles of compositions the rest of your roster are allowed to play. So good to see that SOPS time not only are capable of playing the standard meta picks, but are very willing to go outside that box to kind of experiment to see what it takes to win.
So far, with that win, they're able to stay in the winner's bracket. Let's take a look at the schedule and the bracket so far up until this point to see everything that you've missed. 2-0s across the board for NA, except for finally today we got our first 2-1 set. Wouldn't have it any other way having you here, Mifflin, for a 3-game full set out here on the NA side of the bracket. Now we can take a look at the bracket, too, to kind of see how this all pans out. That means it'll be SOPS time versus Lean Into It in their matchup. The winner of all 4 of these matches that you see on this left side of the screen, winners of those qualify into the SCC. All the other teams, though, they've got to make a much longer fight to qualify for those last 2 spots.
Man, that loser's bracket. And keep in mind, it's double elim on winner's side. You drop down to losers, you lose, you're done. You go home. So a little less Pog, Jazzy Jaguars, and everybody else down there are going to be fighting and vying for the opportunity to work their way forward and try and pick up one of those last remaining scraps, one of those last just little tidbits, an ounce, an iota, a grain of SCC.
And we do get to see more SCC next week. This is only week 1 of the 2-week qualifier here. Starting up on Thursday, we'll be right back to the NASCC winner's side of the bracket. All the teams that have been winning so far this weekend will be playing again for those 4 first spots. Obviously, then we'll move into the lower half of the bracket on that portion of Sunday. But that's only 2 of the 4 days, Mifflin. We've still got the EU teams to talk about as well. What we've seen with those EU squads, able to bring out some big talent in their first days of play, some very close and some maybe not so close games out here. this winner's bracket is going to be very contentious for both of these regions.
Yeah, I'm really excited, man. The SEC is just a breeding ground for new talent in the scene. These guys where they can try and prove themselves, make a name, start practicing that competitive level of play, and start preparing to move up to the big leagues, the Smite Pro League. Even now with relegations kind of back in the picture, you could just take your whole squad and jump on up. You don't even have to go up yourself. You can bring your boys.
We had Thursday and Sunday was our NA teams. Friday and Saturday will be the EU team. Bisco, we didn't really get a chance to watch their matchup earlier on because of the forfeit. Now we got to see what they finally look like going up against Just F6, Belt Slap, and Thunderhead. It's going to be a match to keep watching. Really, honestly, all of these EU matches, all these NA ones, you're not going to want to miss them. Those first 2 days of the weekend are going to be so big because it's stuff with nothing but qualifier round play. As we'll have 16 teams coming into those first 2 days, and only 8 of them are going to be moving on into their respective regions. Remember, there are 6 SCC spots per region up for grabs, but we still have all 16 teams trying to battle for them.
Man, it is wild. The games have been so tight, so hard fought that it's easy to forget sometimes that everyone that has lost can still make it into the SEC. These tight-knit battles, if one of your favorite teams has already lost this week and you're worried, oh man, what's going on with them? Don't worry, they can still do it.
They still have to play a lot more Smite to get to that point, though, and while it is great to play a lot more Smite, it's going to be a hard-fought battle for them in order to make it up into there. Mifflin, are there any teams that are really kind of standing out for you in either of these regions kind of towards these qualifiers?
Yeah, I don't like 5Ls because their name isn't great. Winter Frogs is super funny. Shouts to them. They're the age-old classics like Belt Slap. The Fun Havers have a very dominant performance. All of them. All 32 or whatever 16 times 2 is.
That would be 32 there,
I knew
Mifflin.
it.
A good quick
That's why I
math
said
out
it.
of you, and a good and fun weekend from all of us here at hi-rez Studios at Titan Forge, and bringing us all in the SCC qualifiers. I want to thank you all on behalf of the Casters Production, everyone behind the scenes. Thank you for sticking around, and we'll see you on Thursday for more of the SCC qualifiers.